So when I was in Italy,
Yeah.
I was wearing a dress that was like just slightly above my knees.
Okay.
And I was supposed to go to mass that morning.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually denied me.
Yeah. Do you feel like faith kind of strips you of some of your individuality, some of the
The-
traits or parts of you that are, I guess the church is saying, yeah, don't do that.
I
Or is it? Yeah. Sorry. Go. Like maybe.
yeah, well, so I think first, like, how do you define individuality?
Mhm.
Like, what does that look like?
Let me think of an actual personal anecdote.
Because like, is it in the how you appear? Is it how you appear? Is it your value and belief system? Is it your like what are the things that make up someone's individuality? And how do all those things connect?
Okay. Um, so on the pod, we play with this idea that um, we all individually have certain ways that we lean
Mm-hmm.
more, where we have a propensity to be more faithful or lack faith, right?
Right.
Um, as an example. So just that in itself, to me, speaks to a person's characteristics, right?
Mm-hmm.
Their individuality. That's kind
Mm-hmm.
of part of the definition. So if you are applying that then to faith and saying, hey, faith wants you to have these kinds of viewpoints, but you just, it doesn't come to you naturally to think that way,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it doesn't fully make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've always in other like topics, for example, just the practicing of faith, I've
Mm-hmm.
been like, oh yeah, if you're more of an emotional person
Mm-hmm.
and feelings based, you view faith from a feelings perspective, but it adapts to that. So it doesn't strip you of your ability to be you.
Mm-hmm.
Versus if you want to be more like logical or philosophical or just be by the book and read a lot of like catechism or catechesis
Catechesis. Yeah, yeah.
catechesis, then um like you can go with that approach. So the point is
Mm-hmm.
like it caters to different ways to practice and they're all good.
Yeah.
And the benefit is that you will hopefully learn from each other to
Mm-hmm.
grow as a person. But
Yeah.
it doesn't mean you have to lose your ability to practice the way you want to practice as well.
Mm-hmm.
But in other cases where, yeah, certain views or certain, um, for example, how you dress, like there's a
Mm-hmm.
modesty thing, right? So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I guess there's some, you can still choose a little bit of style,
Mm-hmm.
but at least anecdotally, how I've seen things, especially
Mm-hmm.
culturally in when I go to church, is
Mm-hmm.
I've seen as people go down the rabbit hole or,
Yeah.
get deeper into their
Yeah,
faith,
yeah.
there is a way to dress, like an
Yeah.
actual, like
Yeah,
Amish looking way to dress,
it is. Yes, that is is true.
right?
I mean, like if you were to put two people side by side and you put the Amish looking person beside someone
Yeah,
who's like, I don't know, like has like a lip ring and like
sure.
I
You're
don't
gonna
know.
point to the person who dresses like an
You're
Amish and goes,
and
"That
this
person's
person is
deeper in their
this
faith."
one's better. Yeah. Now, I guess the
But that's a weird way to look at it,
it's
right?
weird, but it's true. But I guess the question is the person who's not dressed like an Amish, are the are we allowed to like be like, I don't know, like talking about the Amish like this?
Okay, I just
Should we
sorry.
like
The only reason, okay, just for
but
clarity.
it is true. But like the veiled women with the long skirts, okay? Like but
Yeah,
we can't talk. We can't.
no, we
Because
can't.
there's
That's the
some
thing.
people like
I'm
we have
not.
to
That's the thing. I'm
we
not.
got to cut all this.
No, we're not. What? No, we're not. This one is fine. This is what I mean, though. When you say it, you can clarify because the thing is, I can see already this is gonna come across as like, oh, you're
It's
just
gonna come
judging
across
them, right?
judging them,
And
and
that's the thing.
it's
I'm
not
not.
that. It's not
Yeah.
that at all.
And the only reason I'm just gonna say this, the only reason Amish came out as a term that I threw out today was because I was talking to another friend about this topic. Just like I was giving them, they were like, "Oh, what are you gonna talk about on the next?" And so I threw out the idea, and I was trying to give them the example of
Yeah,
like the dressing thing,
yeah.
and he used the term, "Oh, you mean like the Amish?" And I was like,
Well,
that's a great way
okay,
to
so
describe it, but it's not because it's like, oh, that's a bad thing.
yeah, yeah.
It's
Well, it's funny. Cut
yeah.
this part, but
No, what?
no,
What?
just this part. Let me say.
Okay.
So this priest actually, where goes
Yeah.
to church,
Yeah.
they dress like the Amish. But the priest told them, he's like, we are not the Amish. Like, he actually had to reinforce the idea that they're not the Amish, even though they dress like the Amish. So it is a thing. Like, there are Catholic, within Catholic culture. Like, if
Yeah.
we talk about Catholic culture and like if we first
Wait, so
touch
are we
upon,
back?
we're
Are we
back.
back?
We're
Okay, we're
back.
back.
We're
Okay.
back. Cut that
Side
part
story.
about.
Sorry. Yeah, you
Yes.
can't. You don't get to hear the
You
story.
don't get to hear the story. This is not part of this. Okay. So it was funny though, right?
It's funny. It's
Yeah.
just okay. Just for context, though, it was a personal story that you just want to share.
Yeah,
Briefly.
yeah.
Okay,
I
yeah.
don't think it was a good one to
Okay,
share.
yeah.
But
It
anyways,
wasn't scandalous by any
no,
means.
no,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
no. It was
Okay.
totally fine. It was very wholesome. So
It actually was.
it was a wholesome
It
story.
was. It
Yeah,
was just
not being
personal, and you
it
just
was just a
didn't want to
personal
share it.
story. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
Anyways,
so you were saying.
So to the point of like, if we think about Catholic culture,
Mhm.
we think about, so there's multiple, I guess, levels to individuality.
Mhm.
There's the level of like, there's dress, right? So like, for example, the person who
Sorry, I think your mic is
is
slightly.
too far.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
just tilt towards
Okay.
it. Yeah.
So is there a certain way of dress though that actually does bring people or does set an example? Like, is there a way?
Well, it all comes from dressing. It's not humility, right? It's what's the word describing why we dress?
Vanity?
Modesty.
Oh,
Thank
modesty?
you. It's
Okay.
modesty.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. So it's modesty. It's dressing. Um, yeah. Well, you know what modesty is.
Right.
So
Yeah,
like I was like trying to define it. I'm like, why? Like,
yeah.
we all know what modesty is.
Yeah.
But obviously it doesn't mean you have to dress
Like,
with
do you
that
have to wear the veil?
style.
Yeah, that's
The
style, right?
style.
I think you can wear, I think
Mhm.
there's multiple styles that you can explore. They're still modest.
But it's just weird how that it's like, why was that embraced though? Right? Why is that kind of like you're saying down like the next level, or the as you keep going, the end goal, or closer to the end goal?
Yeah, it's as soon as you see someone like, if you put
Yeah.
people on a, I don't know, you put them side by side,
Yeah.
you can pick out the holiest one
Via
by,
that.
yeah.
Well, so see, that's the thing. I was exploring that because uh, it is an assumption that we are making, right?
Right?
But
Yeah.
it just because it kind of makes sense, where it's again, it's like I was like, in another pod, it was like a level thing, right? It's like,
Yeah.
well, the next level, if you're exploring your faith and going deeper and deeper, is,
Mhm.
oh, how can I better dress, or how can I better do that? And then for whatever reason, the not justification, but the um, just like basically the end result, when you think about everything, you come to
Mhm.
terms with like, oh, how can I dress better? It's like, oh, this is better for some reason.
So what's the reason?
I don't know. I'm not that level yet. I haven't reached that
One
level.
day you'll be with your button-up shirt
Maybe because
tucked in.
it, okay. So there's part of me that does understand it,
Yeah.
like based on
Okay.
because you
Okay.
said
What's your?
buttoned up shirt,
Yeah.
like that kind of like triggered something where, for
Okay.
example, I can apply that to, you know, people would always push you to dress up like that
Mhm.
for like Christmas or Easter.
Right.
It's this idea of, oh, reverence, right?
Yeah.
I want to show respect, and if I'm gonna see Jesus on Sunday, I want to dress
Yeah.
my best.
And I agree with that.
Sunday
Actually,
best,
that
right?
makes sense. It does make sense.
So
Yeah.
that would be the next step, where it's like it's not just enough to dress modestly and wear a hoodie and jeans.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you look like you're just gonna go see a buddy, and
Yeah.
you're not just seeing a buddy. So
Yeah.
I want to now.
Yeah, and that makes sense. And I can respect people
Mhm.
for wanting to do that and for dressing in a way that they feel like is the most respectful
Mhm.
way to be in front of God. I can respect that. And like, I think that's good. However, I think there's also the side of like, there could be someone who might be able to minister to people in a different way.
Mhm.
Not, this is not talking about modesty, but just talking about style. If they have a different style than that, they're still modest. I
Mhm.
think that they can reach different people in a way that is relatable.
I agree.
So I think that that's also, I think the interesting thing about individuality is we're all different in Christ. Like um we're all like, I'm losing my train
Oh, I'm
of thought.
sorry.
But oh no.
No, it's okay.
We're all
We are all different. I
We are
agree
all
with that.
different, and, like, well, they even like, I don't know, in the Bible, it's like there's like everyone makes up like a different, like everyone's the body of Christ, and everyone
Mm-hmm.
makes up like a different part of the body of Christ in the sense that, like, I don't know, like people have different
Mm-hmm.
purposes. So I actually think that uh what's the joke, Merwin?
But then to kind of pull it back or get back on track, um, well, not back on track. We were still on track,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
to kind of help you out, I was thinking about you were saying, okay, everyone is different. Um, I get what you were saying. I had a different thought though that I was kind of playing with, and I was
Yeah.
kind of interject at some point.
Yeah.
So, oh, I wanted to bring it back really quick though. So, I agree that everyone is different, and I agree that we minister differently, right?
Mhm.
So, part of why I've taken on the way like I dress is I don't kind of go to that next level, if you will, is
Mhm.
because I'm more comfortable in this anyways myself
Mhm.
personally, and I think that like you said, it helps just be more relatable.
Mhm.
But it's not like I dress like this to be more relatable. I
Yeah.
like to dress like this. Like
Yeah.
that's the thing. It's not that the reason is because I
It's
want to just relate to people. Like,
right.
but I really want low key want to dress like a.
Yeah.
That's not it either.
I'm suppressing it.
Yeah, exactly. I just don't want to do that right now. No, I'm definitely more I just feel more at home being this way.
Right.
But it goes back to though that it does seem like the next step if I really want to keep going further is though I can't deny that that is the next step where I've still been playing with that. I still don't know how to organize my thoughts or construct this
I
like
wonder if you can explore style though in a
mhm.
way that is not that.
But okay, so play with the idea first, right?
Yeah.
Go to church and show
Mhm.
reverence,
Yeah.
meaning I want to dress my best.
You're right.
You can say style, it doesn't have to mean like you got suit up or wear a nice dress,
Mhm.
but is it like my best hoodie? Because there's still
Yeah.
culturally, right? You don't go to the Oscars
Right. In a hoodie.
in
Well,
a
that's the
hoodie.
thing.
Oh,
Like,
it's the best hoodie.
yeah.
It's a $1
You
million
wouldn't go
dollar
to
hoodie.
someone's like wedding
Yeah,
in a
exactly,
hoodie
exactly.
or whatever it is. Like
So
it,
it's not even religious, it's cultural, right?
it is,
Cultural is
yeah.
still telling you to dress this way. So
Yeah.
if you're adapting that and saying, "Well, I want to do that though for Christ cuz that's how much he means to me."
Mhm.
Then you have no other choice to dress in that direction.
So, that's an interesting thought. Would you say that someone who does choose
Mhm.
to dress up for like to show reverence in how they dress for church, would you say though they're at a level that is actually then more um
So
that
yeah,
is higher?
it's subjective because it's definitely it's not linear,
Right.
right? I think that's something that we can all agree on, right?
Mhm.
Because it's I think the best way I currently can depict it is y- you know where it's like a circle and then the dot is in the like there's the center point
Yeah, yeah.
and then different skill sets all around the edge of the circle.
All right.
And
Yeah,
then
yeah.
it's like the graph where, you might be proficient in this so that the light goes really far in that direction or like the line, sorry.
Okay.
And then it's like a wavy line that goes like a blob all the way around. I don't know if I'm depicting it well.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I know exactly what
Okay,
this
so
is.
um okay, in Premiere,
Yes.
I forget if it's a histogram or a vectorgram. I forget the
The
name of
color
it.
wheel?
It's the wheel where depending on the color and how
Yeah.
much it shows up,
Right.
it'll push out in that direction more.
Right.
Do you remember?
I think I know what you mean. I
Yeah,
think I understand what your point is
yeah.
with this. It's basically like once you start along that trajectory,
Mhm.
you're going to eventually want to do these certain things. Is that kind of what it is? Like
Well, no,
you naturally will fall
not
into that.
specifically in what I'm trying to describe now. I'm trying to say that faith is not a linear journey where it's like, oh, what's the next level? What's the next level? It's
Right.
not that you two step by step. What I'm saying is, it's an basically a lot of skills or a lot of different directions that you can take faith, and it's about completing or not completing, but just improving yourself in all aspects of
Mhm.
yourself. So I'm trying to. I want to. Hold on, let me just pull it up. It's just better to show you what I'm talking about, and then I can put it up on the screen. So just give us a second here. I'm talking about, okay, so I'm going to put this up on the screen. I'm talking
Okay.
about something like this.
Okay.
So it's more like it's a circle,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Or in this case, it's a hexagon.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the idea is that you have on every point a skill set, and you might be very proficient at this, but then lack skills in this. So then your blob in the middle looks like this weird diamond thing. But then let's say this is clothing, hypothetically, or and
Right.
then this is your feelings and faith, right? Your
Mhm.
personal relationship. This is your um biblical understanding,
Mhm.
right? Catechesis. What's the word? How do I?
Catechesis, that's right.
But like your catechal understanding,
Yeah,
right?
catechol.
Catechal.
Catechol.
That's what I mean. That's what I
Yeah,
was like.
I
How do
think.
I? What's the word there? Um, the point though is that you may lack in this box, but then you will be, um, really strong in these
Right.
boxes,
Okay. I understand what you're
right?
saying.
But at
You're
a
base.
certain point, you might be like, okay, what's the next? I'm ready to take the next step in how I dress. I'm ready to take the next step in how I work or speak
Right.
or whatever,
Right. 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 So I think the interesting thing then with so I guess in terms of how you present yourself, that's just one aspect of individuality.
Mm-hmm.
So your question was, do you lose individuality as you
Mm-hmm.
keep getting further in your faith?
Yes.
I wonder though if there is a way that you can still have style, but you're not dressing exactly as what the culture speaks to. You can have style and it's still reverent and it's nice and it's
Mm-hmm.
modest. But it's kind of it's an individual style. It's not.
Yeah. Okay.
I feel like that is
Like
I
you
feel like
still wear
it's.
really high stilettos with.
You could, I
Not me.
guess.
I'm just. I guess. Yeah. Maybe I could too if it's
I
within my
mean,
style. Sure. I guess.
I don't know if you should. Maybe that would be irreverent.
Is it though? See, that's also then I would that's maybe a different thing because
That's
we have to
like,
explore it more. But
yeah,
I sometimes I wonder about those because it's if the person truly thinks they're dressing their best
yeah,
and they're dressing modestly,
yeah.
why is that bad? Just because it's like pushing on gender roles a bit more, I think.
Maybe. I guess
Because you're not,
so.
oh my god, I shouldn't wear stilettos.
I guess. Like, you mean if you as a guy were to wear
I think that's the
stilettos, is
thing.
that what the
I'm
that's
not,
the
yeah, that's my point. I think
yeah
that's a different topic,
yeah
and that's
yeah
something to explore later
yeah.
on because it's a
Whole
whole other,
different
yeah.
like can of worms, and I will not be on that podcast.
You don't associate with that.
That one I do not want to.
I guess so,
Yeah.
but I don't know. I think the point though is that how you dress is still there's a direction, right? Like music, for example, the music you listen to,
Right.
the art you consume.
Right. And I guess yeah, that's the interesting part with it. Like I think um when it comes to being an individual, some people especially with culture today, it's like, okay, I'm I am just this way and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like so there's a difference between like personality and then how your personality kind of transfers to your like human nature. And like so like human nature, you can change that can change.
Human nature can change.
Well, you can change it, but it's only to become better
Mm-hmm.
in the sense of like when you start exploring your faith. Whereas your personality can remain the same.
So give me an example. Sorry, so like
Uh
personality is like.
Personalities like say you are um I don't know. Say you're just like you what's describe someone to me. Describe a person. Describe an archetype. Give me an archetype.
An archetype,
Yeah,
like having
like in a story.
like the football player.
Sure, like a
I
football
don't know,
player,
like
like
what's
a
the
yeah,
archetype though? It's
that's
not a
an
football
archetype.
player, but
Yeah, it's like a jock.
yeah, the jock.
Okay,
The
so
jock,
like
yeah.
yeah, so that personality is like you're loud, you're driven to like
Mm-hmm.
to your team player.
Physical leader
Yeah,
type,
you're
yeah.
yeah, exactly. So you've got these elements
Mm-hmm.
of what this jock is. That's their kind of personality. It's kind of a stereotype, but
Yeah.
that's their like that's just kind of how they operate in the world.
Basically like introvert versus extrovert. So you're an
Or
extroverted,
that, yeah.
athletic kind of person
Exactly.
is your personality or how your personality is expressed.
Exactly. Through that.
Okay.
So in that way, you can be an individual and still be that. As long as you're not falling into, like, being Catholic,
Mm-hmm.
you have to make sure you're not like falling into sin,
Mm-hmm.
and that's human nature. Like, I think those two things are different. Like, I think your personality can still operate in a way
Mm-hmm.
that's you, that's
Yeah.
very much you, and you can still express yourself in many ways. But I think as once you become Catholic, or as you get deeper in your faith,
Mm-hmm.
I think certain things will just shift.
It's a
Um,
letting go of your
the
human.
human nature part, if that makes sense.
It does, but I kind of want to poke at it a bit
Yeah, yeah.
because I think of so we'll throw Picasso as an example
Okay.
of like a great artist,
Okay.
right?
I don't know
Who
what he's painted. Is it like that lady with her head kind of like on the side?
yeah, Cubism,
Oh,
just
Cuban. Okay, I have no idea.
just the abstract,
Okay.
where like
Okay. Yeah.
eyes
Yeah.
were like sideways
Yes.
and
Okay. Yes, I
so
know
it's like
exactly.
I can show you some artwork, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
the idea like it's not so much about the pieces, it's so much that his work and just him as an artist, right? He's basically given one of the highest titles, right?
Mhm.
Up there with Van Gogh, like maybe even above, right? Like
Yeah.
maybe the top, like the top
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
the all artists that we've had to date or close to.
Mhm.
Um, but it's I don't know. Okay, I can't say his inspiration is from derived from, I guess, his personal life, but I'm just saying in his personal life, he like had mistresses or had like left his wife and then had another, like it's just ideas like it's not the Catholic way to go about it. So,
Right.
but what if that inspired his art and it explored like like again his propensity to be this kind of person and he wouldn't have been Picasso if he didn't explore that direction. Is
Um.
that a weird thing to question? I don't
I
know if
mean,
that's
it's
a
a.
weird like it doesn't even make sense because then we will
I mean,
never
you
know
could
what
say that you
the
never
outcome.
know
Yeah,
what the actual outcome is, right? But I
yeah.
think the interesting thing is, like, we don't know Picasso's like faith journey at all. We don't
Mm-hmm.
know what that looked like to any degree. So we could say all of this stuff happened
Mm-hmm.
in order for him to find faith eventually. And then that's an amazing story. But we could also say that maybe if he was in his faith,
Mm-hmm.
maybe the inspiration would have come in a different way and it still would have been equally as successful. Because you're saying that it's these bad things that made him successful. And then what even is success at that point? Like, what is the perspective on success?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is that then, as a like Catholic, is that what does that look like?
No, it's a fair question. I think even when I threw out the example, it's hard right in the moment to come up with something that really explains what I'm trying to, um, I guess, attack or
Mm-hmm.
question or poke at. Because, like you make a fair point, at least from like a Catholic perspective of how to live, if you want to live that way and take that direction, right? And
Yeah.
I'm not saying, um, like, I guess, yeah, like you made an interesting point. I guess I'm just thinking that there are certain people who I know who like certain music or certain art and it inspires them, it's what calls to them. And then your point is that saying, well, Catholicism is asking you to let go of those human tendencies, right? Where whatever is calling to you within those pieces or mediums is human, like it's human nature.
Mm-hmm.
But if you were to let go of that, you would then, I guess, not be like your mind would be open, I guess, or
I guess it's more of the idea that you can still, like, he could still have been a great artist
mm-hmm.
um as a Catholic.
No, it's true.
He maybe he wouldn't have gone as much
Recognition.
recognition.
Mm-hmm.
But like, look at like Michelangelo,
Mm-hmm.
right? Isn't he the guy, the paintings on the ceiling,
Yeah.
right? And it was religious art, which is interesting. I
Yeah.
don't know how like much of a Catholic, I don't know his faith,
Mm-hmm.
but it's interesting because Picasso, he didn't even have to do anything religious, but I think he could have still been successful regardless of
Because he's an artist
because he's an
regardless.
artist. That's his personality. That's his like talent.
Hmm.
That's his individual. That's his individuality like coming out.
No, that's fair. I think I need a better example. Because you're making a good point about this line. Where yeah, just because you let go of certain parts of your human nature
Mm-hmm.
doesn't mean you get to not explore art. But it's I guess it's kind of like this thing of in like shows where anything with magic, it's like, oh, that's the good magic. Oh, don't dabble in the
Yeah,
bad
yeah,
magic because the
yeah,
bad magic's gonna do these
yeah,
things to
yeah,
you, whatever. And so as an artist, it's like, oh, I want to swear or use this word here, and it's like, well, you don't have to,
yeah. Like in
but
music and stuff.
but it maybe as an artist, you're like, but it speaks to me more. Which
Right.
to think about human nature, as much as it's about letting go, you can't escape that the human experience
Mm-hmm.
is is what relates or connects us all, right?
For sure.
Which, as a Catholic, if you're trying to escape from that, it's almost like you're escaping a little bit from the reality that everyone else is experiencing,
Okay, I understand what you're saying. I
right?
get what you're saying. You almost become unrelatable.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what you're saying?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay. So I think that the interesting part of that is maybe you become unrelatable a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
but I think you end up enduring stuff in different ways. Like your struggle becomes different,
Mm-hmm.
but you can relate to people. But it's a matter of how you take it, right? Like if you are that artist, you're gonna be like you're gonna have a eccentric personality or whatever it is. Like you're gonna have certain elements of you that are, I don't know, more have a tendency to relate to people in a certain way regardless of, like, you don't need your human nature, your fallen human nature
Mm-hmm.
to um to it, like that shouldn't be the
To
only
connect.
to connect. You shouldn't need that. And but it's also to say, like, obviously people have human nature, right? So like there's it being Catholic, if you're struggling with something,
Mm-hmm.
there is that up and down, and that's actually even more relatable because you're actually going through the motions of like, oh, I actually need to change this or fix this. This is difficult.
Mm-hmm.
That going through something that's difficult is actually relatable to people outside of that, I think. And you can, your art or whatever it may be is can be influenced by that. It's not to say that you like choose to struggle or you choose your human nature,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just that natural
I guess I was
because
saying,
it's a journey.
yeah.
Yeah, if that makes sense. I don't know. I don't know
No,
if that answers your question exactly.
it does. It does. It just I don't know. I think it's there's I feel like there's a thread that I really want to pull out. I just can't seem
Mhm.
to find it.
Okay.
But when you intuitively have this feeling,
Yeah.
so I have this feeling in my gut where I'm like, there's something about it that I want to pull at, but I just can't figure out what exactly it is that I want to pull at, or is it just something that I have to accept and I just don't want to accept
So
because
what is it that what is the piece that you feel like you might not want to accept?
okay, so the point that faith or at least Catholicism is asking you to let go of your human nature,
Mhm.
right? Makes sense because as you are, the whole point of your faith is to bring you closer to God.
Mhm.
You're being pulled in the direction of something that is not human, right? So the
Mhm.
idea is that, yeah, you break away from the human nature in order
Yeah.
to be closer to who you love the most, right? But um, I don't know. There's like, I can't, again, I feel like every time I try to come up with an example, it falls apart due to that one point, which is,
Yeah.
well, yeah, because you want to go closer to here, right? And like you were saying, you can still go through the process of human, like your life as a human
Mhm.
and the struggles that you go through, but it doesn't mean when you, let's say, write a song about it,
Yeah.
that it has to have swearing in it
Yeah.
or have to have vulgarity or
Yeah.
and I think it's the part that I'm like, oh no, but that's where you lose the relatable part, right? That's my
Yeah.
argument. Like you lose the relatability because someone who's not where you are now, because
Mhm.
you're when you write this, you're also writing from a perspective that may be you've already gone through it and you're past it.
Mhm.
But if you're not, um, or if you are the person who's still down here, who's still dealing in all their toils, they can't relate to your music because it's like, oh, you're not really,
Right, you're not
you're
like,
not like,
yeah, striking a nerve, or
yeah,
like you're not,
you're not
yeah.
hitting it here in my heart where I
Yeah.
feel what you feel because
Yeah.
you didn't say it the way I feel,
Right.
where I just want to like f the world, right?
Right.
That kind of tone
Right.
that can only be really accomplished with like that word, maybe like again,
Right.
who knows? But
Right. It's an interesting point. Um, hmm. I I have to think about this for a second.
I know I think that's why it's hard. I'm just there's something about it that I want to explore, but I think
I think I
hmm
understand what um
okay. How about this? Let me ask this
yeah.
question: do you think, though, based off what you just said as well, the idea of pushing towards God, meaning pushing away from human nature,
Mhm.
that is in part losing, um, not losing it, like so for the clothing, for example, we should start dressing like this, where
I don't know if it's so I don't know if I necessarily agree with, we have to dress like the Amish,
mm-hmm,
or if we have to
yeah,
dress with
you
like
have to whisper it, yeah, okay,
but yeah, I don't know if it's necessarily like we have to dress like we're on like
mm-hmm,
Little House on the Prairie. Like I don't know if that's the I don't know if that's what
yeah,
we're
the
called.
direction,
I don't
yeah,
know if it has to be that.
yeah,
I think I think as long as we're honoring God in the way that we're dressing, and I think I do like the idea of, okay, you're being reverent, you're dressing up. That's good. And everyone,
mm-hmm,
I think, though, should do it in their own way, because at the end of the day, God knows their heart too.
yeah,
Right? Like, obviously, modesty is, you have to keep that in mind. But like, I think it's just the like style thing too. Like, as soon as you fall into that culture of like, okay, it's got to be a Little House on the Prairie
mm-hmm.
style, then it's like, it's, you become, I don't know. I'm not gonna say you become
So you don't think there's an objective step
where
if
it has to be that.
yeah, if you want to be more irreverent, if you want to do more by your faith and take the next step deeper and to release yourself from human nature, then you'd want to go dress like so we were talking you sparked another idea where the music thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say currently where we're at, we're like, okay, yeah, no swearing, no vulgar content, take that out. But then now it's like I want to write Christian music, right?
Okay.
And it's like, okay, so I want to have like crazy rock and like Lecrae, like people like Lecrae
Yeah. Right.
or
Right.
Chance the
Right.
Rapper, like, oh, these are great songs, right?
Yeah.
But then um go back to the reverend thing. Next
Mm-hmm.
step, next level. Like you're
Yeah.
at that point, but you're like, what's the next level? How can I be even more reverent? How can I
Right.
let go of my human nature more?
Right. So then you start listening to Gregorian chant.
Exactly. Well, no, kind of, or something, because you think about though the reverence of it in mass,
Right.
where you say, okay, this isn't gonna be reverent
Yeah.
to be like rocking on the drum,
Yeah.
like
Right.
really
Right.
hardcore,
Yeah.
right? Or pulling out the guy rapping,
Right.
yeah, right. Can you imagine? Oh man, like you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that's like it's like okay, I get it, but then there's that level of reverence where it's like
Right.
take it that next step further. So now you start saying, I gotta let go of these human musical parts of me. Like that's extreme,
Okay,
but it's
that's, yeah.
taking it further.
Okay, here's an interesting take on the music.
Hmm.
So, I think with the piece where you're like, okay, there's the content in the music, it won't be relatable if it doesn't have like swear words, or if it doesn't have
Hmm.
vulgarity. But I think there are a lot of artists that are secular, that don't have swear words or
Of course, of
vulgarity,
course.
and they're actually doing great. It's just a matter of like exploring your
Hmm.
talent in a way that you can still write songs about things that are not faith-based.
Yeah,
There's
of
nothing
course.
wrong in that. Like, you can write
Yeah.
songs about life. You can write songs about real
Hmm.
things. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You can write songs about struggles. You can write lyrics that are compelling,
Hmm.
and it doesn't necessarily have to have these pieces
Okay,
that
so that's fine. But now you're describing though. I guess I'm saying like where's the line drawn? Where, um, okay, it's like no, for sure we got to cut out that part of
right,
music. You can't do that, right?
right.
But if you stay here in this side of music where it's like okay, you don't have vulgarity, you don't have swearing, um, but feel free to listen to whatever music comes out of that. Are you stagnant though in this box and you're not going deeper? Like so essentially if there are levels,
Right.
we're just saying, "Oh, but this level at least gets rid of the negative side of human nature where it's borderlining the sin. Like,
Well,
you
it's not
know,
glorifying sin. I think that's the difference, right?
yeah.
Like you can have a song about struggles.
Mhm.
You can talk about real things, but you're not glorifying sin. I think that's the difference.
Mhm.
And I don't think it's like, okay, now this artist has to become a Gregorian chanter. Like it's not like
Yeah.
you go from like, okay, like this will make me this much holier. I think God's given people different gifts and abilities to explore. And if someone is a musical artist in this way and they're honoring God in that way, that's
Mhm.
fine. I don't think there necessarily has to, I don't know if there's a level with that. And now some people would argue differently. So
Yeah.
my personal opinion is that, however, I will say at Mass, um, there should be a reverence with the music and stuff. Like it's just you have to it's like even at concerts or whatever it is, it's
Mhm.
like you're setting the mood or the tone based on the music or whatever it is to kind of move the audience or whatever in whatever way. So, um like do I think drums are bad at the mass? I don't think so. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, but other people would argue that it is. That's distracting. Um but I think but that's what makes people individual, right? Like maybe drums in a song could still
Mhm.
someone could still focus on the mass and actually be very reflective and reverent and there's drums.
So
For
then going
another
back
person
so
it could
going
be
back to my
different.
question, um, for your perspective then,
Mhm.
it's not the next step. It's not to be even deeper in the faith or take that next step towards again ridding myself of this human nature. I need to the end goal is Gregorian chants or dressing like the Amish, as you say.
Little house on the prairie.
Yeah.
Um yeah, I would say that that is not the end goal. I think you can
Interesting.
still be an individual. Um However, I think that there's a portrayal that that should be the end goal.
Hmm.
And now I'm no like expert,
Yeah,
obviously,
of course. It's
on
your
this.
opinion.
This is my opinion's just like I think you can still I think you can dress nicely for mass. You can like I don't know. I think you don't necessarily have to I don't know. I don't know if this is like I don't know what the rules are, but like um
Yeah.
but like I know that typically like you'd wear a skirt that goes all the way to your ankles or
Sure.
something.
Yeah.
I think, like, if you were to wear a skirt that goes to your knees, is that like
Scandalous.
right? Like, do you know what I mean? So it's like, I don't think that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, everyone has their own opinions on these things. And like, is that considered immodest? I don't know. I don't know what the that's like something that needs to be defined, I guess. But I think you could still wear a skirt that goes to your knees and it could be nice. And you could still dress nicely and reverently wearing something like that.
Hmm.
Um, but I don't know what the actual criteria like do you I don't know. It's an interesting.
I think that's the question that I'm still stuck then on is yeah, that next level. That's where I think the individuality that I'm referring to gets
Yeah.
lost.
Yeah.
Where if I take it to the extremes of
Mhm.
no, I really want to get super deep in my faith, it
Yeah.
doesn't seem like there's options. Like you were talking about, like, okay, wearing a skirt down to your knees, like I guess so, but then it's still again the boxes become limited, right? Like you are limiting, um, like because of reverence, like oh you got to dress reverently. So there's only so many pieces that are reverent. Where in my opinion, and again, a common theme that seems to always come up again
Mhm.
that I keep coming back to is eh, I always feel like it really does come down to a person's intention.
Mhm.
And the more it becomes the explanation, I sometimes question if it's just a cop out or if it really is the answer.
Yeah.
Because we can say, like, does God really care about the style of, you know what
Right.
I
Does
mean?
he
Like,
actually care?
it gets human, like, invention, right? It's
Yeah,
we think that dressing up in a button thing
exactly.
is the most reverent way to dress,
Yeah, and
right?
that's a lot of actually how I used to be like, does God actually care? Like
Yeah,
if a homeless man
exactly. That's the point, right?
came out
And
from the
that's the
streets,
stories of, like, where you look at the, oh, why would you dress like this? But it's like,
yeah,
no, if that's their best clothes,
yeah.
they're dressing their best.
But then I guess it's up to then every individual, right? It's
Exactly.
like what's best to you.
Yeah.
As I guess as long as whatever you're wearing is not causing people to sin, then like
That's the baseline.
yeah,
Well, that's the
like
whole modesty part, right? That's
right,
the
like
argument for modesty.
right.
You're
I
dressing
guess like
to
that's the I don't know. I feel like that's
the baseline.
the baseline, and then how fancy you want to make it is up to you, and how reverent you like. I guess that's like then it's the fancy level. How fancy are you gonna like? You could wear a gown if you want.
Hmm.
Like you could just like it could not be Little House on the Prairie. You could wear a ball gown.
As long as your intentions are in the right place.
Right, because then are people gonna be like, whoa, like
Yeah.
this person's like
Are you
everyone's
doing it
gonna
for your own
right?
glory
Because I
or,
guess
your
yeah,
own
like if
show?
everyone's dressed like Laura Ingalls,
I don't know who
then
that is.
from Little House on the
Oh, is
Prairie,
that
you wanna
actually?
look her up? Look her up. You'll
I'm just seeing pigtails from Little House on the
you can
Prairie.
put you can put like one of these people up on the screen.
Loris Ingalls.
Yeah, this is gonna show how old I am. This is gonna like
Well, I don't think anyone's dressing like this, but yeah. I get what you're saying. Oh, yeah, okay.
it's not exactly like
Yeah,
that, but
but
it's
I
like
get it.
Anne of
Yeah.
Green Gables, like
Yeah.
like to not offend the Amish, we can use these as examples.
Because it's not a bad thing.
It's
That's
not
the
a bad
point. I'm
thing.
just
It's not a
saying
bad thing.
the whole point of the conversation, again, for the context, is like, is that the end goal? Is it, that's what I mean. The loss of individuality comes when you are now stripped of all your choices because you can dress up, and now it's in this smaller box. So
Yeah.
it's almost like me giving you four muted shades of one color and being like, play with it what you will, but you only have the one color. And it's like, whoa, I lost out now on every other color and every vibrant option of those colors because I have to go in this direction.
So that's an interesting analogy, I would say. But I think the interesting part is that you actually get all the colors. You just have to
No.
yeah.
No, swearing and things in music is a color. Like,
I
and here's
feel
the thing, I'm being very, like, pushing on it, but I'm not
yeah,
some
yeah.
advocate, like, I love, like, I don't think I actually personally care, but it's just an example of, being younger, being told, like, oh yeah, that kind of music, that kind
Yeah.
of
Yeah,
vulgarity,
yeah.
bad music, and I'm like, but it's so catchy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I guess in some way you do have to die to yourself. That is an interesting
Death to
thing.
self.
Death to self. But does that mean death to your individuality? Interesting. You're made new in Christ.
That's the thing.
But
So
you're made
is
new
that
in
part of
Christ,
it?
but you're not all made the same.
We're not all made this. Yeah, we're not all made the same.
Mhm.
But then it's almost like a game where it's like, oh, look at all these different types of people, and let's see if they can all then just mold into this one version of, like,
But then I guess at the end of the day, it's like, why would God die for all of us
mhm.
if we're all just the same person? Like, I don't think God wanted us to all be the same.
I agree.
I think that, I think that, hmm.
I think,
I know what you're saying in
yeah.
terms of like your options are limited,
Mhm.
but maybe your options are actually maybe you actually have a lot more options than you think. Like maybe you're opening up new options. So like for example,
Okay.
so like being able, you have to almost be more creative to style an outfit
Mhm.
that is not Amish, but is like irreverent
Mhm.
and not completely like crazy or out there or whatever. But that's still that's like nice. Like you have to almost be creative in a different way. Like it's interesting. There are people like there are like Catholic, I guess, fashionistas or
Mm-hmm.
whatever.
Yeah.
And like they style outfits in ways that are, I guess, modest or whatever.
Yeah.
But they're not like but they're still, you see their individual
Yeah.
style.
Exactly.
So, I don't know. I don't think there's a I think it just opens new options.
It
It
closes
closes,
some
yeah,
though,
it
but it
does close.
opens new.
Yeah. Yeah. But then it's like the interesting part with this is like, okay, I have an interesting thought
Okay,
actually. Let me
yeah.
see if I can like get to
Yeah,
it.
let's do it.
So, the thought is we're saying that you die to your sinful
Mm-hmm.
nature, your
Sure.
human
Yeah,
nature,
sure.
right? You die to that. And that ends up as a loss of personality or like a loss of dying to your human
Yeah.
nature is a loss of individualism or individuality. Is that correct?
That's the claim. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So if we're saying that, what about the idea that if you don't like what are you gaining by
Mm-hmm.
being the same as everyone else? And falling into that side of like then you're just the same as this, you're either the same as these people or you're the same as these people.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, do you know
Basically,
what I
when
mean?
you take on that culture, the look and the vibe of that style, you're just taking on you're just morphing into one of them.
Yeah, and I mean you can take elements of that and still
Mm-hmm.
be and still say by human nature or like by
Yeah.
whatever, but you can still take on elements, I think, of that and morph it into, you can be creative with that and turn it into something that is good.
Okay, so the only hole I see with that I want to pick at is that,
Yeah, yeah.
um, let's say I embrace the culture of being a uh, what's what's the thing now, like I'm thinking of like again like a subculture look. So like just rock music. I
Okay,
love rock
like
music.
an emo kid.
Show the age. That's so
Yeah,
old school.
fine. Fine. Don't take that out. Cut it.
Not what?
Like a
Stop cutting things. Um, no. Okay, fine, sure. Like emo, goth
uh
look, goth,
okay,
something
fine,
like that.
goth. Okay.
Sure. The point is, you just embrace that culture and you love that look and that vibe.
Yeah.
And you're saying, oh, to that, it's just you're not really an individual because you're just part of that look and that culture. So you're kind of melding into losing your individuality to meld into this look.
Right.
My one thing is that you're still based off your personality like you're getting to express yourself that way.
Mhm.
So you're finding what best expresses you
Mhm.
as an individual. So that's
Right.
where I'm like you're exploring your individuality and not feeling limited by the options. You're getting to go in that direction.
Right.
That was the first thing. The second thing is that um what do you call it? Or maybe that actually is the main point. It's just you are getting to just explore yourself
Right.
without being limited by the options. Versus when I look at faith and I look at the direction, like I still see though the end goal being this, where yeah, I get to or like I can maybe dress a little bit more black, let's say more like black under the color black, the color of the clothes.
So you could dress a little more dark.
Yeah,
Okay.
like goth colors,
Yeah.
which tend to be black
Okay.
mascara,
Right,
black
right,
clothes,
right.
black skirt, whatever.
Right. Right.
Um, so you're dressing up in like this like tone, right?
Right.
And then um choosing, let's say, like silver jewelry and stuff.
Mhm.
Like I guess that kind of works, but then you'll still stand out. You'll stand out in a way that isn't I'm putting quotation here positive, right?
Right. Right, because you're not giving the necessarily the best impression of what a Catholic.
Well,
Is
that's
that what
okay.
you mean?
Not the best impression. That's not what I'm saying, but I
Okay.
mean more so like um so imagine okay, I'm imagining I'm this like church now where
Okay.
everyone is now trying to be the best Catholic, right?
Right.
But they're trying to express their individuality.
Right.
So there's this person again who's like, "Oh yeah, I love the goth look,"
Right.
And I love mascara, like
Right.
black mascara, like
Right, right,
Armor's,
right.
like which is again more emo, maybe more like
Okay.
borderline. And I love like silver um
Like chains.
chains and
Right,
stuff.
right, right.
But I want it to be subtle. I don't want it to be, but it's like so you try to like dress it up a little bit, but it still fits within a look where you look a little bit more from like the sadder, that kind of look. That
Right.
I don't know
The
what
sadder look.
what's the descriptive term here? I was gonna
Um,
use dead, so it
the
was either
dead
dead
look.
or sad.
Yeah.
Like, what's the? I don't. Maybe I'm lacking words
It's
here.
probably just dark, right? Like
Sure.
it's a little bit darker.
Yeah.
It's a darker tone.
Exactly.
As like, your style is like a dark tone,
But
right?
that you feel more yourself. You like that look. You feel proud about how you're dressed. But then, does the church like would the mass not have people kind of be like, oh, like would you not stand out essentially? Like I guess that you're saying if everyone is though exploring this, they won't. So I guess that's your
Yeah, I think if everyone was kind of not being like, I have to be like this,
yeah
and everyone was exploring, okay, how can I modify my style
yeah
to align with Catholic teaching, but also be like nice for
sure
like also actually be like, I don't know, reverent.
sure
I think that would be okay. Now, I don't know, it's interesting because of the association, right? Like the association is if you're doing like fully black like
mm-hmm
eyeliner or whatever, you're suddenly associated with people who may gravitate more towards like devil worship or something. I don't know.
sure
Let's cut that.
no
But who may gravitate more towards things that Catholics don't necessarily stand for.
okay
So, in that case, are you giving a false representation of your faith? Because if it is darker, if
mm-hmm
that style is to represent something dark, do you want to represent something dark? And is that doing a disservice to your faith?
well I think that the style itself specifically actually talking about the goth style
Right.
it derives from a subset of like
Does
Christian church like Catholic churches
yeah, yeah.
the gothic like
Oh, the
style
Gothic,
architecture
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right.
like it's all in line with each
Yeah,
other
yeah.
right so it's
But what about the
actually
style? I
coming
don't know
from
where
Catholicism
I know that the architectural style
yeah
is Gothic,
yeah
like those churches and stuff in
yeah
like Spain and stuff. But like, what about, I don't know about like
like the clothing
clothing
style
style. I don't know
but
where
it
that came
fits
from.
within each other right yeah if I were to take a picture of the Gothic style so someone dressed Gothic
Yeah, yeah.
in this
And
like
put them in a
put
Gothic
them in a Gothic
church.
church it fits so well
Yeah.
it's not like they'll be like oh she's out of place
So
it's
those are the only churches they should go to.
that's the solution
That's how we counter
so they
this.
don't
That's how we fix
so
this
they don't
problem.
stand out
They don't stand out. They fit
they
in.
fit in
This is how,
you're dressing for the occasion
yeah, we're sending you to Spain. We're sending you to that,
wherever they
whatever
exist
that, yeah,
yeah
exactly. It's,
that you solved it yeah
yeah, that's
that's
it.
that's his plan
Yeah,
if you want to
exactly.
express yourself a certain way just
Yeah.
go to the church that I've built them over the
Yeah,
years
exactly.
everyone has a church for
Just
them
for you guys.
yeah
Yeah, I don't know. I
well
guess,
what you're describing is a small it's again it's almost a filter where what you're doing is taking people again it's like oh if I'm in this I really love hip hop music right but
mhm.
I also like my faith
Yeah.
and I want to dress I dress in hoodies and whatever like again that
Mhm.
look that's the majority of the people
Right.
dressing how they just choose to dress with their style and
However,
then as they filter deeper like you're saying into that faith there's like oh
yeah.
but I want to keep it I'm just holding on to little parts of
But
myself
what
while
but those people when
filtering
they
it.
go to like a wedding or something,
Yeah.
they're not wearing their hoodies.
No. No.
So they do have nicer clothing that fits their style.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess. I don't know. You're talking
You're like,
about
they only wear hoodies.
no,
If they're
no,
going
I'm
to the
saying
weddings, they're
like
wearing their chains and
as
grills.
a guy you really only have options as like suits, right?
Yeah,
Like it's
yeah,
a
yeah.
suit or
You could wear like a nice shirt though,
I guess so.
right? A nice shirt and nice
But
pants
the
or
point is it's very limited. It's not I was gonna make a point earlier,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
think it's a good time to make it where you can kind of add on to this.
Yeah, yeah.
Because we're trying to define it, and it's becoming very nitpicky about
Like specifics.
about
Yeah,
specifics,
yeah.
and in the end, and then maybe I'm wrong here, but the way I've always seen the faith and where I stand by still, and what keeps me from dressing a certain way is because I don't think God cares.
Yeah, I almost don't think God cares about that stuff as much
Being a good
emphasis.
person.
Yeah, as much emphasis as we're putting on these
Mm-hmm.
cultural styles.
Yeah.
I think yeah, I agree. I think it's being God knows your heart and God knows if you're a good person or not. Now, if obviously what you're wearing is not
Mm-hmm.
like is I don't know, like not appropriate, that's
Mm-hmm.
different. But I think like I don't know. I think that yeah, at the end of the day it comes down to
So okay, the whole appropriate thing. So there's this story where, oh no, sorry, there's like an idea that I'm gonna propose where it's like
yeah.
I go, or even a girl specific, because the idea was like I come in a swimsuit,
Mhm.
right? So a
You
girl
go in
in a
or
swimsuit or
okay.
a girl in a bikini, so a swimsuit. It's
Okay.
just for a girl in a bikini versus me in literally like shorts but no
Yeah.
shirt.
Yeah.
There's like something different about it because I'm not wearing a shirt versus a girl wearing a bikini is still two pieces.
Right.
It's almost like an outfit. Like like I'm
Underwear?
That's what I mean though. That's kind of what I'm saying. It's for some reason it's different if I show up without a shirt. It's like I'm lacking a shirt. Like I should at least have a shirt on.
I'm having a hard time following this.
Sorry.
Continue.
I had a thought, but then I trailed off on this
Okay.
idea for a
Okay.
second.
Okay.
So the point of the bikini thing was that if let's say um she really wanted to for whatever reason go to mass, she had to go to mass,
Okay.
but she didn't have her spare clothes.
Right.
She shows up in a bikini,
Yeah.
but her intention is to be at church.
But is she causing like 1,000 people to sin?
No, what? No, that's the point. I don't think so.
No. She's
No.
not like causing a distraction.
Why would that be a distraction?
I don't know. I don't know. Is it a distraction or is it not?
Yeah, because people are going to be curious why. But one, like
So
being a
if you
distraction is
were
not a sin.
but I don't know. Is it
Because that's
so
like,
you're
sorry.
so
So,
you don't think that there's no any issue with so
well,
someone could come to church wearing a bikini.
that's what kind of the question I'm proposing. Because if their intention is to be there for mass, because it's
Right.
let's say the last mass, and they
Yeah,
had
yeah.
no other option,
Yeah.
and they wanted to be there, like
Yeah.
why is that? It's a sin to miss mass? So well, they're kind of in a screwed position. Like either I go and I'm sinning, or I don't go and I'm sinning. Like it's not
So
a sin to go to mass in a bikini. There's no like why? What's the basis?
well, I don't know. Is there no so there's no opportunity for anyone to sin upon viewing this half naked
Well, to
girl.
be honest with you, to that question, then wearing any swimsuits in the beach is a sin.
I think that there's like a level of modesty even with swimwear.
Sure. So let's say they're wearing that level of modesty, but then they run to church. I get
um
I get the issue is that at church again the reverence of a mass
yeah.
and the whole point of it, but at the end of the day, when I go back to the stories that say, "Hey, God welcomes everyone,"
Yeah.
right? The homeless person.
Yeah.
Let's say it's a homeless woman then who just
I mean
hot day didn't
okay,
have her clothes. Like I don't
if
know,
it's like
just
a homeless woman and
yeah,
she like I'm sure someone at the church would be like, "Here, take my coat." You know what I mean?
sure,
So like I can give you an example actually that's interesting.
okay,
So when I was in Italy,
yeah,
I was wearing a dress that was like just slightly above my knees.
okay,
And I was supposed to go to mass that morning.
mm-hmm,
And they actually denied me. They said, "You're not allowed to come
wow,
in because we can see your knees."
mm-hmm,
And I was like, this is strange. I'm like, they're really denying me from
mm-hmm,
going to mass
interesting,
for wearing a dress that's actually
mm-hmm,
not inappropriate.
mm-hmm.
At least in my eyes, there was nothing
Culturally, it's not
culturally,
approved to
yeah.
you. Yeah.
So I was like, that's so interesting that they're actually like denying me
Mm-hmm.
for mass. So I thought that was like, so to your point, I think that your point is extreme. I don't think that is. I think that is
Of
clear.
course, this
I
has
feel
never
like
happened
that
in
is,
the
but I
years.
feel like that is clearly inappropriate, right? Or no?
But if they miss mass, they're sinning.
But then they should have planned ahead. They're going to the beach. They know they got to go to
No, someone
mass.
stole their. Someone stole.
Someone stole their clothes.
I know it's an
Like,
unfair situation. It's
like,
like super extreme.
like I don't know. Like I'm trying to understand, like like then why don't people wear bikinis at all times? Like, what is when it's warm? Why not?
Well, it's some of the style now is sports bras, right? Sports bras and what are they, biker shorts or something like that, right?
Yeah,
Or something
like
like
yeah. I don't know. So, but is that appropriate? I don't like. I feel like it's different from
that.
a girl's perspective, but from your perspective, is that appropriate or is it
Well,
not?
to kind of just go back to the
To
the
the
side note thing that I completely lost you
yes.
about the swimsuit and the trunks
Oh
as
yeah,
a
can you
guy.
explain that to
Yeah.
me? What do you mean?
For some reason, when I like I'm imagining a guy coming in just his boxers or like his
His
swimming
swimming
trunks.
trunks, yeah.
And I'm like, this is why it's crazy. I'm asking if you feel the same way.
Yeah.
For some reason, to me, that's just another. It's like a step worse than a girl in a bikini because it's like I'm missing a piece of clothing, right? Like it's like I should have at least have some kind of like tank top or shirt versus almost like a two piece. Like it's like everyone has to have like one piece to cover the top, one piece to cover the bottom, however small it is. It's like you
Do you think
have
the
to.
top has to be covered? Is that like
I don't know why.
is
That's what
that
I mean. It's
is
like
that how it is for
it's a
guys? Did something
completely it's a
change
completely
where guys
separate thought, but for whatever reason, when I think about at least showing up to mass or
at
to something,
least they
at
have
least
two
yeah,
pieces,
no, like okay, like go to a supermarket.
right?
It's like if I'm gonna walk into that supermarket, it's way more strange for me to come in without a shirt than for a girl to walk in with a bikini. That's
I would
that's why.
disagree.
Okay.
I would disagree.
I think it's just because as a male, I'm feeling naked versus a girl would also feel naked in a bikini
Yeah,
in
in
a
a
but
supermarket
in
or
my mind, I'm
at
like,
mass.
yeah.
Like,
But for me, the criteria is like you just need to have two pieces of clothing, one clothing for the bottom half and one piece for the top, however small it is.
I mean, I don't know what the guy's trying to hide.
It's true,
Like what is
but it
it?
just feels like I'm missing a piece of clothing. That's what I mean because the
Right.
criteria in my mind is have two. It's an insane thought. It's completely irrelevant to everything else. It's just for some reason in my brain, that's how it should work. You should have two pieces of clothing by at the minimum, one for the top and one for the bottom. And if you're missing
Interesting.
one,
So you'd rather be wearing a crop top with your shorts.
yeah,
Okay.
because at least if I walked in, I'd have two pieces of clothing. I'm like, hey, don't judge how I chose to dress,
What if you put a
but at
towel
least
over
I'm not
your
missing a piece of clothing
What
today.
if you have like a towel?
Sure, I guess. I maybe I'd wear it like this or something. I don't know. It's just
This is very interesting. I
it's a
never
completely different. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So I'm the
interesting.
only one who thinks
I
this
mean,
way.
do your fellow guys need to cover the top half of their body at all times?
I don't know. Let me ask. Hold on. What do you think? No. You think it's like my thought is just crazy? Okay, it's just crazy. I don't know.
It's
It was just a thought I had where
yeah.
the example makes more sense if it was a girl, but I guess it could be a guy or girl. So the idea is then if a guy came in just his trunks
To mass.
to mass, you really
I
had to
feel like
go.
that would be less inappropriate.
Less inappropriate.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wait, what? Why?
If a guy came in without a shirt
Yeah.
to mass,
Yeah.
it would still be inappropriate
Yeah, but it's
regardless.
less
But it's
inappropriate
less inappropriate
because
because I don't think anyone's going to
look at him.
yeah.
Is that it?
I
Girls don't care.
don't know. I mean, it really depends, I guess. I don't know what I think it would be I don't know.
Yeah.
Can we ask the audience?
No, not no, right? Is that mic on?
Yeah, it's
Okay, go.
Oh, it's on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's an off-camera mic. I didn't know if you wanted to
nice.
talk though.
Well, one mathematical way to approach it is surface area of clothing. Total surface area of a bikini is less than total surface area of swim trunks for guys. So you're
Sure.
covering, right?
Yeah.
Other part is like male nipples for some reason are not as special as female nipples. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. I wish my nipples were special.
I guess that's where my whole shirt thing came from, though. Like, it's just I feel like it should still be covered for men.
No, I think the deeper question is why do we not care about male nipples as much? We need equality.
But I think aren't like I don't know.
We should cover the male nipple. Is what you're
Free the nipple. I heard it
It's
somewhere.
more cover the nipple, actually. Your argument is cover the male nipple.
I don't know. It's like
I should keep it hidden.
it's an interesting take, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Aren't guys and girls wired differently in that way? Like, wouldn't
Yeah.
guys be more affected if a girl comes in half naked
Yeah, but
than
again,
a guy coming in half naked?
So I think my argument against that is like you see that at the beach, and even again, certain clothing now is like working out. You see girls in sports bras. Like
Right.
it's more common to see it. Where again, the setting is where it's out of place. So
Right.
I get that part.
Right.
But if it's again the circumstances are tight, or and I understand it's extreme. Like I think we can all. I'm not gonna skip. the
You're
fact
like,
that
it's not extreme.
like it is, sure. And if I changed it to sports bra, right? Like some girl came in from the gym, she's wearing jogging pants
Mm-hmm.
and a sports bra, right? Is that more doable? It's like, oh, you could be like, still, that's still weird, right? But then I'm like, but yeah, she forgot her shirt, or she got lost. She had to go to mass. Her plan was to go to mass anyways. And
Right.
like, does she show up or not? Because if she misses it, she doesn't get to go, right?
Right.
Then I still stand by that. Where so there's a story that I have. I was at mass once, um, and there was basically, I don't know if he's homeless, but he was definitely an eccentric personality.
Okay.
One of those people where you kind of wonder if it's
Like they have
everything's up,
some
like
kind of
something's
some
going
kind of
on,
illness or whatever.
or because he, like the way he dressed, let's say, like he had, yeah, just you could tell the dress, everything was weird, not in a bad way, just out of place.
Right.
He stood at the back, and we were in, I guess what you would call more of like a fancier looking church.
Okay.
I guess I don't know if that's relevant to the story, but to set the stage, and then during Eucharist, like what's that part called? I forget what it's called.
Like the
Like the handing out of the Eucharist. Like what is that during
like communion?
communion? Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. I just sometimes words. I was gonna say
Yeah.
during. Yeah.
Yeah.
I got caught up on a different word, and I'm like, that's not the word, and so then I completely blanked. I'm a great Catholic. Honestly, from that perspective, yeah, people probably think like, who is this guy?
Like, yeah, what's
You even
this?
go to church? It's
Yeah.
like, dude, I swear, I suck with words. I swear. The point is, he waited till the end, so everyone had gone up, and then he took his shoes off
Mm-hmm.
and walked up, but
Yeah.
it was very reverently though. Like it seemed, it wasn't like he wasn't sashaying up or doing any crazy. It was just
Mm-hmm.
very like calm, and just went up and went on his knees to receive. And
Mm-hmm.
at that point, the awkward part was that the priest was just handing out the last one as he was walking up,
Yeah.
and there was this like maybe 2-3 second gap before he got to the priest,
Mm-hmm.
and the priest was just standing there,
Mm-hmm.
and the priest just turned around.
Oh.
So it was definitely like the priest saw him
Oh, he saw him.
for sure, because he was already
Okay.
going up.
Oh.
But there was this space between him being there, but the priest turned around and just walked away. Walked up.
Interesting.
Yeah. And he stood there for a bit, waiting, and then left. Now,
So he never received
he
communion.
didn't get to
Okay.
receive. The priest basically just ignored him and pretended he didn't exist. Now, maybe you never know. The story could be that this guy does this all the time, and he's actually
Mm-hmm.
not there seriously. Who knows the whole
Yeah,
story,
yeah.
right? But from just that one instance and that perspective,
Mm-hmm.
it made me feel uh, like that's the judgment of, like, the priest was being judgmental, and that person was being judged for not dressing appropriately because you took your shoes off.
Right.
Why would you be barefoot in church? Like, that's weird, right?
I mean, it's the tricky thing with the situation. It's like impossible to know
The
the
circumstances.
circumstances, like
Mhm.
all the little pieces.
But if
Like
you take it at face
face
value,
value, it's an interesting
the priest, why is the
take.
priest doing that, right? Or are
Yeah.
you saying no, the priest had it right because that person?
No, I don't think. I think that I wonder if there was a reason that was just unknown. Like I don't think he would have done it because of the shoes.
Do you
That's
want
my
to
take
give?
on it. I wouldn't say it was because of the shoes.
Yeah.
I don't think. I don't know. I'd have to kind of witness how. Like, did he see him walking up
Yeah, he
barefoot
did.
or
He did. Because he
uh
walked up the middle aisle.
um
I think the thing for me is, I guess I'm more inclined to assume that judgmental priests
mhm.
exist. So in my
Right.
mind, I'm like, it's more likely it was just being judgmental.
Mhm.
But I guess that though derives the bikini and the whole sports bra, the whole all those questions derive from that instance where
Right.
you just because you dressed out of place,
Right.
do
Does
you
that warrant you
exactly? But then if not, if it's like, hey, no, serve the person who's in his bare feet,
mhm.
then why not serve the person who shows up in a sports bra and jogging pants, right? Or why is everyone going to judge them? Or why is that a bad thing? Why should they not show up? Like it's like they should be able to come because the mass should welcome everyone, right?
So I don't think
In
it's
every walk of life.
I don't think it's that they would be I don't know, maybe they would be denied or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think that um like is this person like void of clothes? Like did they just not plan their day? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's so many factors where it's like, well, like where does accountability kind of
Well, what if it was the
come in?
first time in church and they wanted to just come and see what was happening and they
But I
didn't know there
think
was a dress code?
even culturally, you wouldn't even show up to like I don't know, school in a swimsuit.
Okay, yeah, but
You know
we'll
what I
go with
mean?
sports bra and jogging
Okay.
pants. I think that's just more
I feel
likely to
like you
see.
wouldn't even show up to I feel like to school would be another place where you wouldn't.
Well, yeah, maybe, but maybe university you might.
Maybe. But like I wonder if like say we change this from a church. We
Mm-hmm.
change it to like a temple
Mm-hmm.
or like a mosque. I feel like immediately any person would be like I wouldn't wear that.
There's a level. Well, maybe not. I'd argue against that. I'd say no. I think they would still if they didn't know. But I get what you're saying. The idea that because there's some faith connotation to it and there's a level again there is a level of reverence because it's a place of worship that
Mhm.
people wouldn't want to dress like that coming into a period. Again, social norms. Like it's a social
Yeah, it's
norm
just
that's
culturally like embedded in
hmm
society. Like I feel like it's not something that needs to be like I don't know.
hmm
I feel like you just know. It's not really a well, I didn't know kind of thing. For me, like, so my example with my knees or
hmm
whatever, that dress,
that's the
that
extreme
was where
on
I
the
was
other
like,
side.
oh, like I didn't even know that that would be a problem. I didn't even think that would be a
hmm
problem. Um, so that was like interesting.
Is that a negative effect, experience though? That's kind
Um,
of yeah, sorry.
oh no, I would say it kind of was because it threw me off because it's like, wait a minute, like I want to go to
hmm
mass. In my mind, I like to me, I was not dressed inappropriately.
hmm
Um, and like I don't know. I think that was it was kind of like what are we being judged on here?
hmm
Like are we being judged on like I don't know. It was an interesting rule. And I guess like okay, like they break the rule for me then like I don't know.
So am I being too extreme here then because I want the rule to basically make sense not subjectively but it like, it be an objective rule. So your example
Mhm.
is like, well, I just showed my knees. So it was a weird experience and it was, negative.
Mhm.
The same experience is happening with the person with the sports bra. It's just because the cultural expectation is, oh, well, you should be dressing nicer.
I
But
don't know if it's nicer. I
or
think
sorry,
it's
reverent or modest,
yeah.
more modest. But then that's the point though, right? Like it's Italy. You were in
I
Italy?
was in Italy, yeah.
So the Italian like culture is saying this is inappropriate for a church.
Mhm.
is just is a step higher, or how many degrees worse or higher, sorry, than the sports bra at a church in North America. It's the same rules. Like there's no change in the what played out.
I guess
She wasn't aware culturally. She's from another country. Who knows? Like there's so many factors you could factor in. It's just
so. Then I guess if we're coming back to the Amish,
yeah.
technically none of those clothes. Like there's no question then with the clothing.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to be like, well, like, is this inappropriate? It will
Yeah.
actually never be inappropriate. And that's why maybe it's the safe option. And maybe that's why Catholics gravitate towards it, because
Maybe.
it's like the ones
Yeah.
that want to,
Mm-hmm.
like, maybe that's why, because then it's like, oh, then which standard
Mm-hmm.
do you, I don't know, do you go by?
It's just the most, again, like, yeah, it's at the extreme. When you're at that point, I just want to be the most modest, most reverent I can be.
Yeah.
And I'm going to dress this way because it has, it's purely for God.
Yeah.
Which
And
is
then
the-
you don't, then you don't really have to, then you don't even have to care what other people think of it.
Exactly.
Because you're not,
It's for God. It's not
Yeah.
for anyone else.
interesting.
Which is what goes back to the losing of your individuality.
Yeah.
part. And that's the hard part that I'm playing with. Where then I go back to the response, the solution being that when I think of those stories, again, the stories in the Bible that are just, to me, they really are just all about how people fail, right? Is that wrong? Like it's literally just story upon story upon story about like you failed,
Yeah.
and then you.
But
failed,
isn't that
you failed,
life?
you failed.
Like life,
It
that's
is.
pretty much what life
It is
is,
life.
right?
It's literally all about
Yeah.
failure, and then it's just about learning from those failures.
Right.
Like, okay, so the point of the modesty thing, right, in the
Yeah.
church is, yes, of course, because you don't want to lead people's thoughts, right? That's the argument, right?
Right.
You're not going to lead people's thoughts to this.
Or be distracting, like take people away from
Yeah,
God,
sure.
right? Essentially.
Yeah, exactly. So that is the case for why you want to dress modestly.
Right.
I'm not going to deny that.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that when it comes to then someone choosing to dress like that,
Mm-hmm.
there's this I'm implying this intention, but I think that's the difference as well. Again, human intention. Like if you know your faith
Mm-hmm.
and you're just not though okay, that's why I'm trying to define this line, because you can have someone who's learning their faith who doesn't know this yet or isn't at that level to,
Right.
like, they're not exploring the modesty part of their faith
Right.
yet.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
just like doing the thing, right?
Right.
Versus someone who does know.
Mm-hmm.
There's a difference when someone who does know says like, no, I like dressing like this,
Yeah.
and that's just how it is.
Right.
Because then their intention isn't, or like if they're wearing it because they want to get attention, so their
Mhm.
intention is like, oh, but I want the attention, so I'm gonna dress like this.
Right.
That to me matters more than.
Right. That's worse than someone who doesn't know. Like if someone doesn't know,
But to
then
me,
they just don't know, right?
it's worse, but it's not. It's not for me. It's not that it's worse. It's that's like the objective. Like that's bad. And this is good. Like, sorry, I'm like getting lost. Like not getting lost, but it's hard to
Yeah.
like specify.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, I don't like you saying it's worse, because it's still implying that the person who is dressing like this is doing some kind of bad. In my mind, they're not doing any bad, because they don't know.
Oh no, like I'm talking about the person who knows.
Yeah, but when you said it's worse, use the term
Right,
worse.
right.
I'm like,
Worse
it's not
implies
worse
that
because
something was bad. Okay, I
yeah,
understand.
the other
I get.
one's not.
So it was
bad.
it was the wrong word.
Yeah,
It was
so
the wrong word.
that's all I was trying to say.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I
where do we
understand
agree?
that.
We get each other.
Yeah. So if someone doesn't know that they're
Yeah.
doing something wrong,
Yeah.
then you can't fault them for it.
Exactly.
But you can guide them. Or it doesn't necessarily have to be you,
Mhm.
but like there'd be
well, then
something,
you just know
right?
that along their journey that
They'll figure it out.
They'll find out.
Yeah. But then whose responsibility is that?
Yeah, God will figure it out. Like that's not like, honestly though, like it's
Yeah.
not. It's just God will figure it out. Like that to me, that happens. Someone will end up saying something or inappropriate. Hopefully,
How
in
do
a
you
good
know
way.
it's not you who should be saying
I don't
something?
know.
You're like, I just don't want to.
No. To be honest, I think that in my personal experience, it's always been that the opportunity presents itself.
Right.
So if the opportunity presents itself, then
Or
sure.
people just naturally, as
Ask,
they go along
Exactly,
their
they'll
faith
find
journey,
it.
they figure out like, hey, this is probably
Which
not.
circles back though to this tangent, but
I
it goes back
know.
to the point. Like when
Are
you
we all eventually going to be
gonna
dressing like the
yes,
Amish?
exactly. It just still at the end of the day seems like the only direction. And where my solution, what I keep trying to say, was that getting caught up in those details takes away from the fact that because everyone's in their own journey and
Yeah.
everyone is not going to end up having the same mindset on these things,
Right.
it shouldn't be as relevant as like trying to be like the best version of
Right.
yourself, I guess.
Right. And I think when what it ultimately comes down to is that whole thing of your personality
Mm-hmm.
and your human nature. So if you're like ditching your human nature in this, or like trying to make it better
Mm-hmm.
and gravitating away from those things that are like sinful,
Mm-hmm.
then that's just that's good. If that's what the Catholic faith is doing for
Mm-hmm.
you, where it's bringing you to a better version of yourself, which it will do if you're diving into
Yeah.
it, then you can still have your personality. But I think the most important thing at the end of the day is that you're ditching that human nature piece. But you're saying, but you lose your individuality.
Yeah, because once you make that thing, which I agree, it's the extreme of that gets me. Because once, like, again, if you were to section it off into 3 boxes, right?
Right.
The one box where the human nature is sinful,
Right.
right? It's bad.
Right.
Then the human nature, which is not sinful, but it's still middle of the pack.
What does that mean exactly?
So not Gregorian chants, not Amish
Okay.
dressing.
Okay. Okay.
But then you have the third box, which is then things that are literally beyond human nature, arguably. Again, I'm making this claim. It's
Right.
not, I'm just saying the box is labeled, hey, this is where if you want to now step away from human nature completely or take even
Yeah.
a further step away,
Yeah.
you can come into this box. So,
So you're really just denying yourself
yeah,
in
death to
that.
self.
So I guess
But then that becomes the thing.
the loss of
Then I feel like
individuality.
I kind of lose that because I think of like my just as an art person, like I
Yeah.
do art and style, and like I can't do this imagery, or I have to limit myself. I feel limited to some extent, and
Yeah.
then as I try to as I look deeper into my faith and try to say, okay, what can I do to take a step further?
Mm-hmm.
I see that box and go, but that doesn't. Again, it's not me. It's like now I'm putting on this
Right.
like mask or this like different thing, this different skin.
Is there something that you can do though to bridge that? Like, is there something that you can do? Because at the end of the day, you're choosing, like, it is more of
Mm-hmm.
a choice in some way. I don't know. It's tricky.
Or okay, so another example that just came to mind is let's say there's this rapper and he is at a different stage of his faith
Mm-hmm.
where he still thinks like I can swear in a Christian song.
Okay.
Like again, these are very out there abstract
Yeah.
ideas, but I think there probably still is some kind of they probably do exist. The point is you just hear this music and there's swearing that are not all of it, but then it's still a great message.
Right.
Do I listen to the song or do I not? As someone who knows the faith better, quote unquote knows the faith better,
Yeah, I think it really depends
because the
what
message is
is.
good.
Yeah.
But
So what is the song encouraging from you?
F the devil.
Okay. Interesting. Um,
Jesus is the way. Jesus is the light. But F the devil because he's a plate. I don't know. Like I don't. So
I don't know. That's a tricky one. I'm
right.
not sure what is the song causing you to sin?
I think that's your baseline, right? Like,
Right? Like, is it
yeah.
like, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
I don't know.
Is that the bare min though, or is that the standard?
I mean, so here's an interesting thing. That's actually a good question
Yeah.
because that's probably the bare minimum, because I guess at the end of the day,
Mhm.
there's always going to be a song that's better, that's
Mhm.
more wholesome.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's going to
Gregorian chant.
well,
Mm.
oh no.
What?
Like the Gregorian chant.
You saw your future and you're like, I can't. That was really funny though.
But like, I don't know. There's always gonna be,
Yeah.
but it can be wholesome. But like, what makes I don't know. Some people would argue that the Gregorian chant, because of the certain frequencies,
Mhm.
that there's something with that where it's like there's something divine or something about that. I've heard. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't like
Yeah.
quote me on that. Never
There's
mind.
something about it.
There's something about
I know what you're
I don't
saying.
know what
Yeah,
it
yeah.
is. They say that there's something that is closer to like
Yeah, I've heard it.
I
Yeah,
don't
I know
know.
what you're
I don't
saying.
know exactly what it
Yeah.
is. Just as there's songs that have a certain level that are like, there's actually a sound that they put in horror movies that actually make people,
Their heart race.
yeah, and they make them extremely anxious.
Yeah.
And it's you can't really hear the sound, but it's
Yeah.
something that they throw in, and people feel horrible. So there is something better, and maybe we do deny ourselves. This is tricky.
That's the hardest part. At
Yeah.
the end of the day, the answer might be that it is death to self. It is the loss of individuality, but then it doesn't sit well because then it goes back to this. But God, like you said, God makes you all different. And you'd like to believe it's not for the sake of just seeing who can align themselves with now
Right.
this
No,
direction,
I
but
don't
more,
think God's challenging us.
yeah.
I think,
The idea is he's supposed to see the fruits of each person as special or
yeah,
different, right? So if that's the case, then why would he want to get rid of that? So
right. So I don't think he is getting rid of it.
exactly.
I don't think this is the only way. Like, I
Hmm.
don't think the Gregorian chant is you've made it. You know what I mean?
I get it. Yeah.
Do I think it's probably good for you? Sure. But I think there's lots of other things that are positive and that can be good for you and that can actually lead you closer to God. Like, I think even things like nature
Hmm.
can like there's many things on this earth that can bring your mind closer to God. I don't think it necessarily has to be a it's how God relates to you through other pieces of his
Hmm.
creation. And I think that's kind of what it is.
Okay. So God relates to you. Yeah. Like I've heard that point, right? Like God speaks to you in all these different ways, and then yeah, some people, yeah, through nature, through different mediums. But so then, how do you then resolve the whole thing that you were saying, human nature, getting rid of though that part of yourself, and then as long as,
So like the thing is no one's ever absolutely going to get rid of their human nature.
of course.
It's always going to be a struggle because
Hmm.
we're not like not human. We're human at the end
Hmm.
of the day. But I think it's being able to navigate those things with who you are as a
Hmm.
person and relying on God in the way that where your will or like God's will aligns with I don't know.
So
My thought is lost.
when I take okay, going back to the whole intentions, human people's intentions,
Mhm.
that comes from my understanding or my belief that God is not, because we're also trying to understand God's logic, right?
Yeah.
His
Like
his
his
plan,
nature,
his
yeah.
nature, right? Which is again, as a human, you're trying to, so you're taking human nature and then applying it to God and then saying this is
Mhm.
what God, which is why I go back to, well, why would God care if you're in a sports bra if at the end of the day that person didn't even know, right?
Right.
The intention matters more than, because if God is omnipresent and can also know all our thoughts and feelings, and he's that,
Right.
like, it's almost like, again, like processing all this at the same time.
Mhm.
Y- you can um your logic or your understanding of what's right and wrong isn't based off of just, oh, sports bra bad. It's
Right.
it's intention and current, what their situation is and what yeah, all the parameters are being now
Right.
applied, and he can process that.
Right. And I think everyone's judged by what they know.
Yeah.
Like I don't think it's like if someone doesn't know
Hmm.
that this is not appropriate,
Yeah,
then God
exactly.
knows that.
So that's where I go back to, like, that's what makes the most sense to me, right? If God has all this ability and power anyways, and then even I, at least at the bare minimum, can say, yeah, I wouldn't be mad at or blame this person if they didn't know.
Mhm.
Um, then why wouldn't God do that, right? So
Mhm.
when I apply that and I apply it to the different types of music we consume or this stuff, um, it slightly opens the door for me to say, okay, well, this is why not everyone has to then conform to this one direction. Where it gets tricky still, though, is the whole as you uncover God more,
Right.
right? If I want, again, if I want to be more reverent and I'm understanding the faith more,
Yeah.
I feel now I'm being inclined to do this, where I have to dress this way or listen to this kind of music, and I'm like, that still bothers me.
I see what you mean, because you're losing your
Again,
individuality in
yeah,
that
and I'm
way.
like, I can't still find how to make amends where I get to then stop the bit, like, because it's weird. It's like, oh no, I want to stop here. Like, this is where the
Mhm.
ride ends for me.
Yeah.
I don't want
Yeah.
to go
I
deeper.
don't want to go to Gregorian
Yeah,
chant.
exactly. Yeah,
That- That's the part of the theme park I
yeah,
stay away from.
exactly.
Like,
Please no. Like,
yeah.
but then am I then denying my faith? Like, am I denying who I should be or more of who I? And that's I don't think there's an answer that I have yet. I'd like to see where it goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. That's tough.
Yeah, it's interesting. Um, it is interesting. I don't know if I know I don't
I
know
don't
if
think no. I don't think. Yeah.
I think, yeah, it's very it's conflicting in the sense of
Hmm.
like, is that the only way then?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know.
That's
I
the
do still think that you can apply, though, pieces of individuality
hmm
to that, and people maybe haven't explored it.
I think even if it was, it still goes back to I'm playing with the shades of yellow. I'm playing with 5 shades of yellow at this point. I don't get any of the colors anymore because I
But then once you're in you're in your human nature
yeah.
state, then you get all of that, but then you don't get any of this.
Sorry, you don't
Like
get
you get all of
yeah, but you don't get
you
the
get
shades of yellow.
yeah, well, you get all of whatever you want,
Hmm.
but it's not necessarily good for you. I think that's the thing.
Okay,
Like,
but like talk about the second box that I was referring to before, where
oh, the middle
the middle
box.
box.
Right.
It's like, okay, we listen to music that's not, again, bad for us,
Right.
but it's not necessarily the best for us, right?
But what makes it not necessarily the best?
Um,
Like, so I can give you an example.
sure.
Like with the Gregorian chant,
Yeah.
when I listen to it, it doesn't like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like, oh my gosh, I'm being so much more reverent.
Mm-hmm.
When I listen to another song that maybe makes me reflect on things, I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that's almost like, I don't know. I feel like that in some ways bringing me closer to God, as opposed to listening to the Gregorian chant.
Yeah.
So I think that's where it kind of
Okay, so then
differs a little bit.
we'll remove the Gregorian chant because that was just jokingly the end.
Yeah, yeah.
It was the end, but it's not really the end. Let's say, okay, I personally find myself most reflective
Mm-hmm.
not when I listen to Christian music but basically when I listen to music that really is like just, again, in those emotional like those, they hit
Right.
hard, the
Right.
pain, but in those songs about pain and like struggle, they are also touching on inappropriate themes
Okay.
or swearing,
Right.
but I'm not taking that part doesn't
Right.
matter to me.
Right.
I'm like, at the end of the day, is that wrong?
I guess if it's not I don't know. That's the
Right?
tricky part.
So
Like,
that goes back to the levels, right? Like then, like, do I like, okay, take that out and then I'll only listen to this kind of music based off these parameters or not? And then I go, because I know better and that's not supposed to be a good song, but
I
it's
guess
such a good song. Like it just hits like here.
I guess we could use like like an analogy of
Yeah.
like health or something. So like even like I don't know, like I'm trying to think of like food.
Mm-hmm.
And like you could have like I don't know, like all your vegetables and whatever you're
Sure.
supposed to have. And that's like the best option for you.
Mm-hmm.
Like whatever the best things to eat are,
Yeah.
that's your best. Then there's the middle category,
Mm-hmm.
which is like, I don't know, like you're still getting your carbs from your
Sure.
cereals and like, but
Yeah.
it's not great for you.
Okay.
Then you have just like your junk food.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you really want to be
Super healthy.
super healthy,
Yeah.
um,
You got to make sacrifices.
You do, and you have to take that specific option. But maybe not necessarily. You can have a balance of both of those two categories, I think, and still be healthy.
Yeah.
I
You
don't
just
know if
wouldn't
you
be as healthy. Right? It's so annoying. That's why. At the end of the day, you won't be
I
as
guess
healthy.
it really comes down to like, is your priority your faith? If your priority is your faith, then I
Yeah.
guess like then Gregorian chant, like come on, like let's start it now.
Start it out. Let's get it.
I don't know. It's a tricky one. I don't know.
Sorry, I feel like I'm just like blocking you at every chance. You're like, and I love the way you're like the ideas you're coming up with, which are great.
Yeah.
It's just they always stump. Like I
I
always
I
get
am
stumped
I
by the
am
same problem.
yeah, I
Basically.
am stumped. I mean, then at the end of the day, it's
Mhm.
like we should technically be going to like Latin Mass, right? Latin Mass, Gregorian chant,
Well,
just lower angles,
sure.
like just
Back in the old days.
the olden days, like
Yeah.
churning butter, you know?
But then I think about all the good like things that I have encountered that were new age, where you took the principles of your faith but adapted it to new mediums.
No, what do you mean?
Like the skits we used to do.
Oh, okay.
Or yeah, just music. Like there are again
Yeah,
like I
adapting
love
things
Chance the
that are
Rapper, for example. It's like 'cause some of his stuff are super interesting to listen
mm-hmm.
to, and it's like built off faith. But
Yeah.
it's still like it teeters. It teeters still, right?
Right.
And I go back to like we are of the world, right?
Well,
Like we're of the world. I know we're not supposed to live like what is it?
we're supposed to be
Romans,
in the
yeah,
world, but
but
not
not
be
of
of
it.
it. Yeah, and I think that's the part where it's like once you dive into that far extreme,
Mm-hmm.
can you still be in the
You're not
world?
in the world anymore.
You're
You've
not. At that
escaped it.
point, you've moved.
Oh, maybe this is your out.
So
Yeah.
I think this is
God
it.
says, "Be in the
If
world."
you
But
want to evangelize and like touch people's
yeah.
lives, you actually kind of do have to be relevant in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying those people aren't relevant. That's not what it is. That's not. Let's cut that little piece. Let's just cut that little piece. I'm not saying that they're not relevant. I'm just saying like
okay. So let me bridge it for you. So you're not saying cut that piece. The idea is that there's different ways to be relevant to different types of people.
exactly. So like
So they're relevant to other types of people too.
Yes.
You're just talking about being relevant to others that you, again, as a personality, you've always been drawn more towards.
Okay, that's interesting actually. That is very interesting because your personality might gravitate towards actually like ministering to people who aren't who are in a different category. And if that's and God's individually programmed you to gravitate towards like this is what he's equipped you with to be like, okay, I'm giving you this gift so you can evangelize with people who are not like or help them out or support them, whatever it may be, encourage them. That is what that middle category kind of allows you to do.
Yeah.
I think that's what it is.
And then for me now, based off what you're saying, I'm breaking away from the middle category. Is even that like those three levels, as it's not really being. The middle category is not just a passive place to be.
It's
I think
not.
It's where
You're still actively.
like it's a great place.
Yeah,
like it's
good.
It's a good place to be.
You're
it's not
actively,
like you have to go to this other box. It's
no,
this is actually where
I think you're actively participating in things that are good for your faith. I don't think it's not like okay, I'm just stagnant here.
There's just one thing I have to pick
okay.
up.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people though who aren't exploring their individuality to be a form of evangelization, and their goal is not also that. Is that the basis that you're making, that you do this though to evangelize? Or what if you don't? Like basically if you don't do any kind of evangelization, you have no care to do so.
So but
is it like Gregorian chant?
Well, no, evangelization can be done in ways that are not like I'm going out to talk to this person to convert them.
Yeah,
like it's not that.
It's not active. Yeah.
It's just in your day-to-day life you're being like
a representation.
yeah, it's that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's but you're, for example, you're in circumstances or situations like
Yeah.
that are not necessarily like you're not always going to be like, you're going to be in the world. You're
Yeah.
not always going to be in a Catholic setting, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the interesting part with it. Like, you're just living you're basically your day-to-day life
Mhm.
is reflective of your faith.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be like, I don't mean like, okay, you have been given this gift to go out and like talk to this many people and tell them about
Yeah.
God. It's not that. Like, evangelization is not done like that.
Mhm.
Evangelization is by like a relationship with people. I feel like that's how it
It's done
really,
passively through just being
to
you
just
and
and to
relating to
just
others.
setting an
Yeah.
example of like, why are you like this?
Yeah.
Make people question why you're like that.
If I can add to that,
Mm-hmm.
it goes like my whole outlook with the faith, right, is when God sends you out there, it says like, essentially as a person, your goal is to be, for me, the most loving, understanding, humble. Like those characteristics are so important because
Mm-hmm.
I do think if you're ever called, it's not really even to evangelize, it's to just be the extension of what God's love is supposed to be.
Right.
Right. And it's not supposed to be on God's shoulders to just be like, oh, let me show every person God's love
Yeah.
with some mystical magic.
Right. No, it's not
It's
that.
human, like you're saying, human interaction. And
Yeah.
how is that accomplished is if the people who do know God more
Mm-hmm.
actually apply to themselves being that loving, understanding person,
Mm-hmm.
because then they are extending God's love and showing what God's love actually is supposed to be,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then in turn, it may or may not evangelize, right?
Yeah,
Passively.
exactly. Yeah. And that's where it could come down
Mhm.
to, maybe you do say something.
If it comes up,
If it
yeah.
comes up, like if
Yeah.
someone wants to
Some
talk
people
about
ask
faith,
questions and
yeah,
then you can
then
approach it or not.
that's also an option. It's
But the
not
point
a.
is, like, yeah, I think the key piece for me is being that extension
Mm-hmm.
and learning. If there is a step to take, it's those, again, those values for me of just trying to be, like you said, a good person and just build relationships that are built on those values.
Yeah.
Um, which then, if I go back to the bra thing with us, the sports bra thing,
Yeah.
that's where I'm like, if you're in church and we're all having that kind of nature, though,
Having what kind of
the
nature?
nature of just like we're caught up in, like, we're focused more on ourselves, on our self improvement,
Right.
humble in we're not any better than the person next to us,
Right.
and loving and understanding of everyone as best we can to everyone else's situation.
Right.
Then when we see someone approach or come in
Mm-hmm.
and they don't fit the bill or they don't dress reverently, the first thought is not any kind of like judgment or passing of like, oh, that person's not dressed right or whatever. It's just, oh wow, like this person's here, like that's great, like, or like not, or even like, I don't know if it's indifference should be even the tone where it's kind of like this person's here the same as all of us, right? Where I don't know if that's the end goal. For me, it is. I don't know if you would agree on that, but I think the reason why to me the end goal is to be indifferent and just kind of be like, this person's here just the same as me, is
Mm-hmm.
because you don't know the situation anyways, so you can't make a call on why they're dressed like this or what's happening. And in the end, um, if you do really truly believe in God and believe He works through people,
Mm-hmm.
then the opportunity will present itself to one of you one day, if it is something that God's saying, well, in her journey, dressing a little bit reverently, would be nice, if that becomes a thing. Do you
Right.
agree with that, or
Um, it's a little bit of, I
too
don't
passive?
I think it's a little passive in the sense that, is there, I don't know. It really depends. Like, is this person causing people in the congregation to like fall into sin?
See, that's why I go no, because if everyone is working on those characteristics about themselves and they're working on themselves,
But they're also human, right?
yeah.
Like, I feel like they're not all, now that they're like actively
Mhm.
Catholic, it doesn't mean that they can't fall into temptation or sin.
Of course, but that's the thing, she doesn't know, right? No one, like, she doesn't
Right, you
know.
wouldn't fault her for it because she
Yeah,
doesn't know.
but then that's why you
But
can't
you
really have
can't
an opinion on it. Sorry, I'll
but
let you
you but
finish your
oh,
point.
no, no. My point was just that you can't also deny that it, like, you can objectively say this is probably not good.
Yes, sorry, I think Marlon wants to chime in.
I just
Yeah.
want to make a point. You
Mhm.
keep saying if this woman causes people to sin. I think depending on how physically beautiful a woman is, anything short of a burqa is gonna do that. So what's the onus like? Yeah,
Right,
there's a
where's the
line.
accountability line?
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Okay, that's
That's a fair point.
interesting.
Thank
That's an
you.
interesting
Thank you for chiming
point.
in.
Right, people have to be accountable also. But in that case, would you, to Miguel's point about the girl in the bikini?
Also, not a burqa, a bat. No, sorry. It's a joke that I completely missed. You like you beat out the beauty out of her, so she's ugly. It's like
Oh. So yeah, like I guess the question is like then to Miguel's point, like then is that okay? With the his whole thing with the girl walks in a bikini.
mhm.
Like is that, what's your take on that?
I agree that there's a line, but the who going back to your whole discussion,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's as simple to define the line.
Mhm.
Like I do think, because you also brought up temples and mosques,
Mhm.
Mhm.
and they have a well-known dress code.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Don't churches have a decently well-known dress code?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like I do think that those dress codes are pretty just societally like known, right?
Mhm.
So I feel like that's not, like, I think the accountability could fall on this. You're saying she doesn't know, this girl.
Mhm.
So I don't know if there's a
I'm saying that as in the best case scenarios, when I think of just how humans should interact or as how Catholics should act or at the end goal, because it's not our job to make a judgment call or to pass judgment of any kind.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How do you define judgment?
Um. Okay. So judgment, negative connotation,
Mm-hmm.
and it affects. Since it's negative, it affects the way you see a person.
Okay.
Um. And in turn will have a negative effect on your interaction, or even if it doesn't, maybe even just how they experience. It's just negative. And it's basically when you're making a call on somebody, a judgment. You're making a judgment on someone, and it affects how you talk to them
So
or
I think
interact.
it's interesting because when I think of the word judgment, I
Mhm.
think of like, are you condemning this person to hell?
Mhm.
And that's like not it.
Mhm.
It's not like you're just kind of like like you're not condemning anyone to hell. You're not
Mhm.
saying like, oh my gosh, this person's gonna go to hell because they did this and this. It's
Mhm.
like you're I think you can make an objective judgment of a situation. Not maybe not a situation, but
Mhm.
of um like a circumstance outside of like the person, if that makes sense. So you're not judging the person. You're not condemning them to hell. You're not saying like this person's so bad. Like look at this sinner. Like you're not
Mhm.
doing that. It's not that. But you can say like
You're just making a call.
you're making a call saying, I don't know if that's like, is that ideal? Probably not, right?
I guess so, but when you're saying is that ideal, probably not. What value is that adding?
I think it's
If it doesn't affect how you talk to
I
them,
guess
if it
it
doesn't.
wouldn't, but it wouldn't affect how I would interact with her.
Mhm.
I think it would just I think that's just
It's your
natural.
guidelines to keep yourself from also then being like, I love what she's wearing. I'm gonna dress that like that tomorrow. Is
I
that what you're
guess
saying?
like I guess like it's kind of like I don't know, would you agree or disagree? Like do you think it's inappropriate or not? Like is there, it's either you're complacent about it
Mm-hmm.
or you have an opinion.
So I don't think those are the two options. Because I go back to okay, so if I'm going to the best version of myself, right? And the
Mhm.
best version of myself is to see any kind of situation and not want to pass a judgment call on anything
Right. Like you're
because
not jumping.
in my mind, if we go back to the whole processing God's understanding versus our own
Mhm.
and understanding his nature, if his nature, to our best of our ability, at least to what we've concluded so far, is that he is going to um, base it off all the circumstances and all the like what's going on in their head, their intentions, all those.
Mhm.
we have no read on any of that. So if I'm putting the judgment on God's hands and I can't read on any of those indicators, when I see this person in their sports bra, I can't make a judgment, because if the judgment is God's judgment and I don't have those factors, I can't make any call. I can make a human call that says, yeah, well, maybe that's not appropriate. But what value does that add? Doesn't add any value to God, doesn't add any value to myself, other than I'm saying that wasn't appropriate.
I guess all it does is just reinforce a standard that you live by. I guess that's it, right?
And that's where I get the dangerous. I think it's dangerous because
Because you're putting rules and parameters.
the parameters and the rules is what causes, though, other types of individuals who are very much about the rules
Mm-hmm.
to then make more harsher judgments too, where it's like, well, you can't dress like that. But then that's the point. She can, or if she's coming to church, and I get the fine line of like, oh, but then everyone just come to church. But then if God's just welcoming to them and they really are trying to understand God, then they also will then grow, because there is a line, right? I'm not saying as well that, because I think this might be coming across like that, where let's just be all loosey goosey about everything and whatever.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, you have to abide by, God's calling you to do better, be better.
Right.
Your goal, like part of it, is to be better as an individual.
Yeah.
So you hope in this case that this person who's then coming into the church is then trying to understand her faith more and then relating to God more, that in her own time she'll come to that terms. But it's
Right.
not. It's
Right.
my job to then help, if she has questions, to guide her,
Mm-hmm.
to be there as an assistant to help push that direction.
Yeah.
But I still see no need for even the judgment. The moment where I go, well, that's not appropriate, because you already know, like, and it's irrelevant.
So if there were multiple people
Mhm.
in the church,
Yeah.
who were dressing like that,
Mm-hmm.
and this is just what they wore to church
Mm-hmm.
every week, and it was just because they there's no reason behind it. Like, it's not that they didn't know,
Mm-hmm.
or they just like where is the line for you of like, okay, now everyone's dressing inappropriately, or everyone just wears whatever they want at the end of the day and that's it.
Then I look for the not well, I don't look for the opportunity myself, but I guess I just I'll ask myself, or wonder, like, oh, I wonder why this is happening. Um, kind of maybe have a conversation on the pod about it. I'd be like, isn't this kind of interesting how like, maybe I'll look into human nature about it and all that, but I don't
Yeah.
think I won't have any other thoughts. Like, I don't think it's like, oh, I need to fix this in
Right.
that, because what exactly am I fixing? If I really do believe that people are pushing to be better, and if one of them approaches me and starts asking me questions about faith for whatever reason,
Yeah.
I can bring it up
Yeah.
in conversation. I can challenge them on it.
Yeah.
That's part of it. Like,
Yeah.
and then have that, and then maybe they'll be like, "You're right," and then all of a sudden it reverts back, because in your circumstance, what is the cause? Like, I'd be wondering, what's the cause? Why is this happening? Right?
Yeah. I mean, something interesting is like, if everyone in the church
Mm-hmm.
and just this one individual is dressed differently, I think they'd automatically just be like, oh, like, Merwin does not think so.
No. Sure. Chime in. What's going on?
I think they'd automatically, I don't know. I think that they'd automatically just think,
I just think that depends on the person and their personality.
Mhm.
okay.
Like the classic "I will not conform" thing.
Our t-shirts?
I'll not conform.
I will not conform. Interesting.
I don't know. I'm being a little bit more optimistic, but I think
So, like, I guess at the end of the day, do we just not care about that?
it's not your job to.
Okay.
Like, I don't, like, again, I don't see the value added with the judgment. I just see negative, because if you still stand by the standards,
Yeah.
you're not again, loosening the rules or anything. You're
Right.
just understanding your role in it.
Right.
right? I'm not here to pass judgment. I'm here to help push you to be better if you want to, if that's part of your
Right. And
journey or
I
not.
agree with that. If someone
Yeah.
wants to like
Yeah.
yeah. Like
Then
I'm
there's
not,
no what's the harm, what's the point of like there what's the value you're gaining from that call
but I
other
think your
than the
mind automatically would just be like, "Oh, this is like
yeah.
according to my standard, this is like not appropriate."
I think it's
And
human
I
nature
think
to do that. But to your point, escape human nature. I think that is that's a negative. That's not a positive. Because
interesting.
on the extreme
Yeah.
level, it's a Pharisee kind of mentality, right? Like
Right, I get
look
that.
at that sinner over there. It's a
But it's
way
not
worse
that.
version. It is.
No,
It's not that. Oh,
it's
sorry.
not that at all.
It's not
Yeah.
that at all. But it's the extreme of that.
Right, the extreme would be like that's a sin, that look at the sinner.
Hmm.
I don't know if that's fair to say that your mind goes automatically to like that's the trajectory of that thought.
I guess okay. Yeah, maybe I think okay. I have two questions then.
Okay.
Like because I can see what you mean and I'm not trying to um villainize that kind of
Yeah.
thinking,
I
right?
mean, you can
But I
objectively, I think, look at things
yeah,
and say like that's just
yeah.
that's just not it. Like, you know what I mean? You can just look at something and be like, "Okay, like, nah, it's not really. This is not ideal." Like, and that's it. There's nothing there's no judgment on the person.
Hmm.
There's no like it's just like this is just not it. And that's it. And that's
Yeah.
like it doesn't go further than that.
Hmm.
Do you know what I mean? And it's not like I wouldn't treat this person differently. I'd probably
Hmm.
befriend this person. Like
Yeah,
it
of course.
like and if they want to know different things, I would probably never even say to them, "Hey, you
Hmm.
should dress differently." It's like, no.
Yeah.
If they're exploring like it's like, "Hey, like what am I supposed to wear to mass?"
I think we're saying the same thing. It's just we're that the like the one little detail is I'm trying to remove the thought. But it's funny because I am and I'm not. So when I say, "Hey, we still uphold a standard," or
Mhm.
you still stand by it, so you still challenge them if the opportunity arises to kind of see what their reasoning is and all that. Let's say to help push them
To
to
understand them, I
understand.
think that's fine.
So there's like basically I'm saying I'm inherently still standing by the fact that like, hey, no, that's not appropriate.
Mhm.
But for me, not having the thought or even having that even when someone walks in, have it even run through my head. One, it's not in. I wouldn't. It doesn't actually naturally run through my head, but for some reason, I feel like there's a difference there, and that's where I'm like, I'm willing to concede that there is no difference there, because
Mhm.
at the end of the day, I'm still like, if someone had asked me, "Hey, did you see the girls running?" I'm like, yeah, who cares? Like, it's not a big deal. That's what would be my response. But in the
Mhm.
end, I wouldn't be like, well, hey, that's totally like, well, I guess I
Would you be
would
like
though.
that's totally fine? Like that's
I
the
guess
thing.
though I
Like
would. I probably would
are
have.
like when you say who cares, that's complacent, right? That's where it's like you don't
Who cares? Because I'm saying it's not my place to know what the situation is and why she's here this way.
right.
And it's irrelevant to me because in the end of the day, if she's here because it's her first time back in her faith, let's say she just um gotten this like lost her job, like all this bad stuff happened, and she just had to come to church for whatever
Mhm.
reason, run
Yeah.
here, or if she literally like just innocently like forgot her shirt after the gym and she was like, I have to go to mass today, I can't go tomorrow, whatever reason, like to me, those are all valid reasons to just show up then because you want to be at church and that's not a bad thing. So
Right.
when I don't know those circumstances and someone says, "Do you see that person dressed?" Yeah, who cares? Like, it's not my, it's
So I
it's irrelevant to me.
so I
Like,
think the interesting thing is like having the thought of that's not it versus like then going to someone and being like, "Did you see?" or
mm-hmm,
like that's I feel like very different. That's where it's like, "Okay, I want to judge this
mm-hmm.
person." I feel like objectively having a thought and not being like I feel like that's where you're just not being complacent about because then you could just say who cares to anything.
So, question then.
Mhm.
Sorry, would it be better though if you had the thought of, "Oh, wonder why she's dressed like that," and then try to give
That would be a
an
better
optimistic reason?
that'd be a better way to obviously frame that
Mm-hmm.
in your mind. Like I wonder why.
Yeah,
Yeah, for
because the
sure.
thing is,
Because then you think of that person as a person.
what I
Yeah.
agree with you on is not muddying up the standards that you're saying. Again, I get what you're saying
Yeah.
by trying to stand by that. And I stand with you on that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's where I think it does get muddy, or you start to water down. That's not muddy, but like watering down the values that the faith is trying to teach you, right?
Right.
But yeah, I'm coming from that place of like optimism, trying to be more understanding, where
Mm-hmm.
my thoughts shouldn't cross my mind. Oh, that's not appropriate. Even if it's not out of judgment, it's not you're not going to treat this person any differently. When you make the objective call, but you don't know those circumstances, you're looking from a human nature of saying, well, that's not appropriate, but on what basis, right?
You know what? That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
I agree with you in the sense that like look at the person as a human being
Mhm.
and say they're not just like what they're wearing.
Yeah.
It's like why
Why are you
I
yeah.
like that. Like why I wonder why.
Exactly.
Like hopefully like I don't know.
Hopefully
Like
things are okay.
yeah, or whatever. Like
Exactly.
I would yeah, the I wonder why. That's an interesting way to look at it. It brings it brings the actual like care for the human being
Yeah.
back into the picture.
Yeah.
And I get that. Like I understand it. I do think like obviously that thought stems from an objective like standard.
Mm-hmm.
Um
Yeah, because
but
it stands out to you because you're like, that's out of place.
right. So
But you're not appropriate with then being like, well, that's wrong. It's not wrong. It's just, yeah, I'm
yeah.
going to try to understand you now. What's going
Mhm.
on?
Exactly. That's interesting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good way to approach
Cool.
things.
Oh, okay. We met.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
We found it. Nice. Um, you think that's a good place to end?
Mm.
Finding the middle, or do you have another thought?
I think we kind of came to a pretty like we kind of figured out what that thing was.
Yeah.
We kind of worked our way through,
Hopefully, if we
navigated, I
left
think.
anything open, we can always have it again.
Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, yeah, we'll never fully know what is objectively like are we gonna, but I think I'm content with your whole point of like being in the world is
Yeah.
part of it though.
Yeah.
And to be in the world is to then also to allow yourself to express yourself in certain ways. And as long as you're striving to be the best version of yourself,
Yeah.
there's a balance to be had,
Yeah.
and you can't speak to that balance because it's very subjective, but
But I do think you have to actively be participating in things
mm-hmm.
that do draw you closer to God. So that would be like praying, reading the Bible,
Yeah, of course,
going
exactly.
to mass, like things like that
Yeah.
are the things that you like. And I think like the fruits of whatever of the Holy Spirit, like whatever the fruits of even just your efforts
Mm-hmm.
in like that will all actually show itself. I think.
Yeah, I agree with
I
that.
think naturally, if you are sincerely seeking God,
Yeah.
I think all of that stuff will
Yeah,
you'll be able to be in the world and
Mhm.
not be of it. And I think
Yeah.
you'll be equipped
Mm-hmm.
to do that.
I agree with you 100% on that. I think that you summed it up really well because it is like I'm yeah, it's a balance that you're trying to
Mhm.
find. It's a give and take, and as a human you're going to mess up sometimes and fall, and then sometimes you're going to do really well. But as long as you're on that path and you're
Mhm.
constantly, like you said, on top of it or trying to find that balance, you'll always end up being a better version of yourself.
Mhm.
And it's okay if you fail sometimes.
Mhm.
Which again goes back to the whole thing of like, when people fail, that's why I don't want to pass judgment. It's like you don't know what they're going through in that moment. But
Right. And I guess if you start looking at things the way that you described
Mhm.
it from that perspective, if everyone in the Catholic community was kind of like, okay, so why?
what's going on?
Like think about
Yeah.
how and then like can I pray with you?
Yeah,
Can
exactly.
I read the Bible with
Yeah.
you? Can we talk through this? Can we talk
That's
about
the
like can
God's
we
love that you as a Catholic that's what you feel, right? That's the reason that
yeah.
you stay here, because you believe this God is here, loves you no matter what.
Mhm.
And that only exists, and that's what I mean. Like it's not God's job to love others, and that's my personal belief.
I've heard this before. It's
Yeah.
our job to love
Yeah.
others. I've heard that. I don't know if I
You
think
don't know if you
God
agree with that
I don't
one?
know if I agree in the sense that like Jesus technically showed his love by
Mhm.
like sacrificing his life for us. But I do agree that on earth the closest like one of the
Mhm.
best ways, I would say, one of the best ways would be through people is how
Mhm.
you see God's love. It's there's all obviously multiple ways, but I think through people is Like,
Mhm.
I don't know, it makes so much sense. Like, God created us for a reason bigger than ourselves.
And I think the biggest detriment, though, is when God's people, if you're claiming to be God's people as a Catholic, aren't loving,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I think that's the thing that gets me the most is like, you talk about this God's love, you're saying, I'm Catholic, oh, I love God, God loves me so much, it's amazing. But then when you are not loving towards others and
Mm-hmm.
charitable and all those things, that's what they're seeing.
Right.
They don't know this God's love.
Right.
They're seeing the love that you're supposedly so happy about
Mm-hmm.
being represented through you.
Yeah.
Because they're thinking, well, if God's love is so amazing, you must be this really great, amazing, sweet person.
Yeah.
But then you're not. And it's like, ugh.
Yeah.
Like, then I don't
It's like
want
a
any of that. Yeah,
disconnect.
I
Yeah.
don't want
Yeah.
that faith, right?
Yeah.
I think it's an ideal. But I
Yeah.
think in my mind, at least personally, that's what makes the most sense to me. Where, like you said, if the community was actually like that,
Yeah.
um, and you would extend that love that way, that is
Mm-hmm.
what I see God's love. That like the best depiction of God's love through humans is a world where we are being that understanding and like, hey, what's going on? And it's a
Yeah.
very hard, it's very unlikely, unrealistic.
Yeah. Because it's interesting. I think
Mhm.
like the more people are caught up with things like their own
Yeah,
selfish
exactly.
needs
Yeah.
or whatever it may be, um, it's interesting because if everyone actually did care about other
Mhm.
people, they wouldn't even have to think selfishly about
Yeah,
themselves.
exactly.
Like that whole piece would be, it just
Yeah,
you wouldn't need to feel like, oh my gosh, I have to do this for myself. But if people are there for
exactly.
you, like you're like, you know what, it's okay.
And then if I can add to that one last thing, because
Of
this is what
course.
I love the connections, and then now you're connecting it to, which is why then marriage is such a huge part of the Catholic faith,
Mm-hmm.
because through marriage is when you're supposed to, like, one of the first stepping stones. Well, of course, friendship and family, but
Yeah, yeah.
that's the one time when, as a human, you're actually challenged the most to then think of the other person.
Right, because it's like
hmm
sacrificial.
Exactly,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then the next step through that is then
Is
through children,
Yeah,
to which
and
then it's really death.
then
Like it's like
then it's really
yeah,
death to self. It's
but like
like
that's the
people, yeah.
time when you're actually challenged to learn these skills.
Yeah.
But ideally, if you did that to everyone and actually were to do that in
Yeah.
its perfect form,
Yeah.
the world would be better. So
Yeah.
when I see that as also one of the goals and one of the teaching stones of like why the faith is asking you to do that, I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, now if we can do it before that, if we learn that
Yeah.
earlier, it would be better.
Yeah. That's really interesting.
hmm
Yeah. Whoa. Success?
I think so.
I
I
don't
think it was a
know.
good pod. Other than for
It's,
you being like,
there's certain parts where I'm like, you might have to cut it, but certain
we'll
things.
chop a little bit. But yeah, no, we'll cut here and we'll see you guys later.